people will tell you to keep politics out of sports, but they're the ones bringing politics into the sport.
Because Mighty Mouse to me is such an interesting case of like pick-me syndrome, because I actually kind of get where it comes from. Not that I agree, but I understand.
They're pick-me's for our administration. It's very frustrating to me to see someone like Uncle Ive be like, oh no, we like Trump. The guy that he has been shucking and jiving for all this time.
Can you use shucking and jiving for a white guy? That's actually the funniest thing. I'm actually usually.
Am I getting canceled already?
You would have thought, honestly, that Aljamain Sterling. I was about to say something off the wall. Oh my gosh, I got to use a different comparison.
Henry Cejudo. Come on, bro. You can say you're not Mexican all day.
Former Mexican. He's a former Mexican.
He'll like go to Chechnya before he'll go to Mexico.
You're more hyped about Chubb holding your belt than you actually winning the fight. Like that is actually cult behavior. He probably thought you were Ronda Rousey. Like, what are we doing?
Kadyrov has the belt on his arm, and Khamzat's walking behind him, and people are like, boo, man. They didn't even let him walk in with the belt. He had to give it to his leader in this sense. John Jones doing a jig, literally doing a jig for the man.
And I don't know how I went through all those people and I literally forgot about John Jones being like a big token.
That's the biggest. That is a fun size arcade token. Sorry. And now I'm feeling like you, Isaiah, I guess. Is Steve Garcia not that like Australian guy with gray hair?
That's Steve Erskine.
Steve Erskine.
Yeah, Steve Erskine. Let me tell y'all, I did not know people could fail at alt-right grifting until we got to Colby Covington. Yo, Colby Covington spent how many years did Colby spend doing the MAGA grift? How many years was it? Like,
because he fought Maya. At least 8, if not 10.
However many years, but Colby literally, I kid you not, prayed for times like this. And this man didn't even get on the MAGA White House card. And I think the biggest thing that this is a real big problem that we have in MMA is a lot of fighters, but particularly the Colby types, suffer from pick-me syndrome. What do y'all think?
Yeah, there's a lot of pick-me's in the UFC, and they're getting nothing to show for it. And it's, to me, it's kind of like bittersweet. Like, unfortunately, they get a platform to grift and be losers, in my opinion. And it does kind of feel like some poetic justice when someone like Colby Covington, who spent all of his career practically being evil and not even going to the big house, like the guy that he has been shucking and jiving for all this time.
Can you use shucking and jiving for a white guy? That's actually the funniest thing. I'm actually usually.
Am I getting canceled already?
No,
what else is it? Like, you think about someone
it is though. That is like the proper description. I just never hear it used for a white guy.
Reclaiming it. I'm reclaiming it at this point, because if you're gonna sit here and put the hat on and do the free branding and be this character, and that's what everyone always says, well, he's just a character. I'm like, I literally do not care. Like, what a shit character to pick. Like, that is the worst character you could possibly do. And then you think, okay, he's probably going to get something out of it. We finally have the main event, the big thing that would ever come from being like a MAGA freak in this sport. A literal fight at the White House, and you're not even on the card. I'd quit. I would break my contract. I'd say, you got to let me go, because I did all this for what?
You know what I'm realizing as we're talking about this is an example of how they'll discard a fighter at the end of their career. Like how before we started recording, we were talking about Bilal, them throwing him on the apex. Like, Colby did get some benefits out of his grifting, when they could use him. But now that they can't use him anymore, they give him nothing. They give him not even scraps. They're not even giving him the first fight on the White House card. Like maybe one prelim and it's Colby. They're not offering him anything.
They picked 2.5 Mexicans over him, bro. Do you know how sick he's probably got to be, bro? Dude, that's rough. Like,
for real. I mean, like, I'm sure he's looking at this card and he's like, all these brown people are getting picked over me. Like, I'm sure he's just, I mean, we know that he is. We know how upset he is. I don't know that I've seen of him, that he's like really. Did he say something specifically about him not being on the card, or was he just complaining about other, like, the pay and stuff like that?
He did say something specifically. Let me see if I could find it.
Yeah, it was a mix of both. He was mainly saying like, I've done so much for the UFC and da 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 da, and then he was basically saying the White House card was trash, which is like the
Oh,
equivalent of
yeah.
like you try to get with a girl and then she curve you and then you go like, I ain't even want you anyway, bro. You ugly. And
Right.
it's like you can't really do that. But I will
Yeah, and
say though, like in defense of Colby, well, not in defense, but just to keep it real, I would have rather seen him on there than Bo. Not that I like either, but like
mhm,
at least with Colby's like it's kind of fun to hate on him. With Bo, he's just like he's like generic wrestler ginger guy,
yeah.
number 5, but he has like the accolades, so people go like, "Oh man, it's Bo Nickel, dude. That's Bo Nickel." But I don't know. Ever since he lost to RDR, which shouldn't even be that bad of a loss, but there's like or is a real thing. I know like people use that as like it's like a cringe term, but there was something about the way he lost to RDR and he kind of like went over like this.
Crumpled.
I
Yeah.
can't I can't get it out of my brain. So
Which is
Yeah.
funny 'cause, the RDR ended up doing damn near the same thing. Like, what, the next time he fought?
Yeah.
yeah,
Quitting on the stool just like, I mean, he gave up in this, like, kind of the same way that RDR like, the metaphorical, like, crumpling of the body when he's getting ragdolled, so it's funny.
Bo hasn't made up for it yet either because he pulled out against, Yoel when
yeah,
Yoel didn't make weight, so,
bro.
Oh,
like, he
wow.
Dude,
hasn't
dude,
done
that
anything in the meantime to try to make up those aura points.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
he won.
he did knock out
Who did
Hodolfo,
he
like yeah, he had head kick.
Oh, he did do that. Yeah,
But see, like, you
yeah,
don't even
yeah.
remember though. You don't even remember.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't even remember though. Like you don't remember, bro.
Yeah.
And that's what I will say about Colby Covington, you unfortunately do remember him. Like, he is more memorable, especially because I made a video about this, like, there's gonna be people who are watching this simply because of the fact that it has something to do with Trump, and it's on his birthday, it's at the White House, and other news outlets are talking about this. You got TMZ, Good Morning America, all these people are having Dana White on talking about this White House card, so there's gonna be a lot of patriots watching this. Why would you not have the representation of these patriots with Colby Covington? Because what he manifests is, like, what we see in America with these, like, crazy MAGA freaks, like, the gematria crowd, like, that's Colby Covington. Why would you not use him, Marty Fake Newsman type guy, to, like, push this card? Because I don't think this is, like, a respectable card, in my opinion. Like, it feels weird that they wouldn't go for the gimmicks for this card when it's getting pushed out to an audience that would never watch UFC in the first place, you know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be 70-year-olds, like, the people from Necessary Conversation, I don't know if you know them on TikTok, they're tuning into this. Like,
I
Oh,
like,
is that the
those old freaks,
parents?
they're going to
Yeah.
be tuning into something like this. So it's like, why would you not have the people who cater to that audience that are still, like, in Trump psychosis to have the guy who is literally "Dee, dee, 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 dee," like, "Trump, Trump, Trump, Trump," like, you should have that guy there. At least, like, I don't know, make him a commentator or something. Like, I don't feel bad for Colby Covington. I don't really wanna see him succeed in this way, but it is kind of a downfall in the UFC to not use, like, the Trump guy in this instance. But, yeah.
I do feel like it kinda represents the Trump administration, though, because how many people have been, like, fired from his administration or, like, shift positions or something along those lines? Like, so many people are just discarded, it seems. I don't know, maybe, like, let's see, my first time voting was the first Trump election, but I was 18 after, Obama's second election. So I was kind of paying
Mm,
attention around that time. But my first time like fully paying attention because I was able to vote was that time in the presidential election. And it seems like more than any other administration, in Trump's administration, people are constantly getting fired, constantly getting like shifted to a different position because they messed up in this one.
mm.
Like, and so I feel like that kind of it fits that they're just like it doesn't matter that Colby was representing us this entire time. We could just now Steve Garcia is the guy.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that too, like, they're just not trying to. It's weird because I feel like there is obviously that type of level of Trump supporter, like that Colby way, right? With the hat and the chain and the glitz and the glamour of it all. But I also feel like that has calmed down a lot since after 2020. Like, I do obviously see a lot of, like, in in my opinion, insane Trump people, but not in like such a boisterous way. So I feel like they're probably like, "Oh, that's not really our brand anymore." Like this is like again, they I feel like they're thinking this is like some really sophisticated thing even though it's not. Like I would think that I don't know that I'm going to tune into this card, but I would probably think a Vegas show would be more thorough and thought out and have more, I don't know, like merit to it, you know what I mean? Like I just feel like this is going to be like a pop-up like when people pop up like carnivals in a parking lot of like a gas station or
Yeah.
something, that's what this feels like. Like it
Y
doesn't feel put together.
Yeah.
I will say Colby might be black for real. Like, hear me out, hear me out, hear me out, right? Because you said he was shucking and jiving earlier. But if you think about it, he's having like the typical black conservative experience, like the black token experience where you like oversell yourself. Like you were kind of like Colby was never like a mediocre fighter. Like I know I'd be hating on him. I'd be saying he was never that good. But like this is where I break the fourth wall. Colby was really good. But if his story is like true that he was gonna get let go by the UFC because he was boring, whatever, and he decided to shift into the whole like super Mega Man gimmick because of it, like whatever. The thing is though, right, is that's like what Candace Owens and like the other black conservatives do. Like they were kind of like rejects or not that great in another field. So they're like, I mean, it's really like basically you can just go out there, you can like you said, shuck and jive. But like they always say, tokens get spent. And the truth is, Colby, I feel like the problem was he low key, he wasn't built for it. That's why it's like pick me syndrome because like Sean Strickland and them, even though Sean Strickland has now been like anti-MAGA, but he's still like him. I feel
Mhm.
like Colby was always like, "Oh, Mr. President, Mr. President," and like I feel like when he took that picture in the White House with the interim belt, it felt like more like a field trip, not like a, "Oh my gosh, I got to see this Colby Covington guy." Like it wasn't, it never really came off like that. In fact, I even remember this is a clip that people do not know about years and years ago, Trump was actually talking about how one of his favorite fighters was actually Kamaru Usman, not even Colby. I cannot recall if I've ever heard Trump. Maybe there's some clip that I'm not considering of him going out of his way to be like, "Oh yeah, that Colby Covington fellow, like that's one of my favorites." I hear Habib, I hear Usman, Masvidal, but I never hear him really say Colby. And I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't know
just
if
kind
he's
of like,
ever said Colby's name.
yeah, it's like middle child syndrome. I don't know if either y'all are middle children, but like it's like that. So
Yeah.
I think though I don't feel bad for him per se, because that's not the word I would use, but there is an element of well, actually, if you think about it, because y'all are both alluding to this was like the most MAGA way to do the card. First, you start out by saying we're getting like 8, 6, 7 title fights, like it's gonna be the greatest thing you ever seen. And then you shifted to like, all right, well, we're gonna have a one of one main event. And then you shifted to like, okay, but like it wasn't our fault though. Like John Jones, he was being difficult. Islam, he said he had a broken hand or da 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 da. Like you start like, well, to be fair, Dana did say that they were never gonna do Islam versus Ilya. The stories are
Mhm.
kind of conflicting on what exactly happened. Like when did Ilya's team know about Islam's hand or not? Like that's kind of up in the air. But now then they're saying they're gonna give out 85K, what was it, 85K tickets in
For the
like some
lawn
air.
For
Like
next
free.
door.
Yeah.
I don't want to get put on a watch list for even what I'm saying, but I know we're all thinking it. Like, why that
Yeah.
sounds so bad. Like 85K. Like, first of all, I can't even fathom what it'd be like to see 85K people in just like an area. Like
Right. That's too dense.
like you're gonna give 85K free tickets to like that's what I'm saying. Like, and a part of me starts to think, is this even gonna happen? Are they just gonna like move it to Capital One Arena in DC? Like, are they actually gonna do it at the White House? Because it feels like everything that we get told gets shifted. They even said they were gonna make like an arena that would have fit like what, like 30K people, and then it was like, never mind, we're
Yeah.
not gonna do that. Like, even though they can't do that in such a short amount of time.
And also, it was supposed to be on July 4th, a Saturday, which it would make sense. 250 years. That, like, this is all very stupid, but that would have actually, like, low key been cool. 250, whole number. No 251, no random. It's like 250, that's lit. That's a good number. That's a marketable number. It's a Saturday on which the UFC has historically always been on, I'm pretty sure. And it makes sense. It's like, okay, this is the day. It's America's birthday. Girl, now we're going to June 14th? Hello? That is so
Yeah.
random. That is so random, but it's
That
to appease a man? Very
that is
weird.
his birthday, right? June
Yeah,
they're
that
doing
is his
it
That's
on
Trump's birthday. Yeah.
and
yeah, and
and
that's a testament as well to just
A
how MAGA the
Sunday.
card is, you know? It goes from
Yeah,
celebrating America to celebrating him.
and that's
exactly.
like the pick me thing with the UFC as a whole, right? So the UFC like fan base, so my perspective on it is gonna be different for everyone. So because I've been like into MMA since I was like a kid, but I didn't really get involved in like MMA discourse, like the community until like maybe 2019, 2020. That's when I started like actually like talking to people. Cause in real life, I'm gonna keep it a buck, especially as a black African American specifically. I didn't know a lot of people growing up who actually watched MMA. Like that was pretty uncommon, but I would only ever hear it when John Jones or Conor McGregor was fighting. Other than that, and Ronda too, Ronda as well. But
Mhm.
anyone else, people weren't really talking about it. But I will say there's the shift into I think where it got a lot more right wing. I don't know if the fan base ever changed politically in the sense that like I do think whether if it's like I think it's something we see in American football and MMA, there's probably some level of like baseline right wing politics. It kind of like that kind of exists. But I'm talking more about the UFC as a whole. Because the UFC, I felt like before, when was it? What I'd say? They first walked out Trump when it was Diaz and Masvidal. Was that the first time they did it? I want to say it was Masvidal
Not sure.
Diaz. I remember though when that happened, Trump was actually getting booed a decent amount. Like it was kind of split. Like it wasn't like everybody was going like, yeah, yeah. Like how John Jones was when he gave him the back. He was like, yeah, and like
Yeah.
that. Like I do
Yeah.
remember there being a little bit of controversy with that. People were a little bit confused as to like why why is like Dana and them like low key out here campaigning for Trump. But
What
it
year
wasn't
was
like
that?
that would have Diaz fought Masvidal like in 2019, right?
Okay, okay.
I want to
I
say
don't
that was
remember.
2019. Yeah,
So
it
it
had
was
to be 20.
pre-2020 though?
Yeah, it had to be pre-2020. Yeah, it was 2019. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was 2019. But I remember the one that sticks out to me the most was I was actually there for it. It was Miami when Izzy fought Alex. That was 22, I believe, 2022 or 23, whichever year that was. But Trump wasn't actually the president at this point. So I
Mm,
remember when he came out, but to be fair, we were in Miami, and Miami's like worse than like Alabama. So like those who know,
mm.
they were like, "Oh my gosh, Trump!" And you got like the happy dad, the barstool, like that archetype of people who are just like eating it up. And I found myself starting to think like, okay, this is like definitely gonna alienate like a good amount of people. Because I remember being there and being like, I understand like if Trump is like just there because he's an important figure, like he's known, and you like put him out on like the jumbotron, you're like, oh, see, like we got Trump here. But a full Kid Rock walkout, and it's taking like 15 minutes, and we're stopping everything, and I'm like, that's where people lose me because people will make it seem like, oh, if the president shows up, like you gotta like show something special, which no, low key, no, though, because the president shows up to a bunch of other sporting events. Like, for example, the US Army versus Navy game, right? When it was Biden, Obama, whomever, they don't like during the game or halftime go like, all right, bro, we're gonna get the Jumbotron up and we're gonna get Obama right here. And we're gonna like play. I don't know what they're gonna play for Obama exactly. Like, they're not doing that.
My
But then they'll
president
sit
is
here and tell
black.
you, like,
My
oh, but it
Lambo is blue.
but they're not gonna do that. And then but people will sit here and say, "Oh, like it's not that deep, bro. Just watch the fights." I was at the fights just to watch it. What am I? So you want me to just get up out of the seat and
Yeah.
leave? Like,
Yeah, turn the hell around, like,
Don't bring
yeah,
girl,
like
politics
like, the
don't
hell?
bring politics into sports
Yeah,
as
that
the
part.
president's being walked out.
yeah,
And that's the thing too, because I recently saw a clip of Dana White being like, back in the day, being like, "I just don't wanna hear you talk about God." Then you got then Bryce Mitchell can walk out with a full-fledged Bible, put it in the air, hold it up, do a cross, and it's like, so this guy doesn't stand for
freedom.
much. Yeah, it's like, so you have it's one thing, and I've made this point before. It's one thing if you wanna, like, privately dislike things or have a way about things that you want it to be, but then for you to say them out loud and then contradict it later, it's like, "Okay, you're the leader of this." Like, you at one point said that you don't need them to be on the mic talking about God. Can't lie. It is a bit frustrating when Joe Rogan's like, "Take a look at this. You choked him out." And he's like, "Jesus Christ." I'm like, "That's not what Joe Rogan just said. He just said, 'Go look at the Jumbotron,' and you choked him out. And now you're talking about Jesus Christ is gonna save everyone in the damn crowd." Okay, I get it. It is frustrating. But yet, and I wouldn't I but at the same time, yeah, that's fine. They can talk about it, but for Dana White to at one point be like, "I don't like that. I don't want them to talk about God all the time." And then, yeah, then there's, like, theatrics with it at this point. Same thing, keep sports out of politics. But then it's literally a rally at this point. So what is it, man? Like, do you not like that? I th but now you do, and I think it's obviously the pick-meism because he's the biggest one of them all, and he's gonna appease to him at to any means and all ends to, like, be in favor of Trump. And I will say, I obviously would never be in this position, but shit, if I got to put my event on the White House lawn, who's done that before? That's the difference between someone like Colby Covington and Dana White. Obviously, there's a huge difference because Dana White's the owner of it all, but he shucked and jived in his own way for Donald Trump, and he is seeing a payout for it. Colby Covington is doing the theatrics as well, and what does he gain from it? He hasn't fought since what?
Since
April of 2024
it was like
or
when Buckley
2025?
whooped on him. That was like, I think I
Yeah,
wanna say it
Yeah.
was like December or something. It might have been in 24. Yeah, I think because that
yeah,
was in
24.
Tampa. But I think my thing with, this is something people always will bring up is, well, Trump helped out Dana back in the day because it is true that, Trump would host, events like, was it the Mar-a-Lago or whatever his, venue was. But I always kinda still push back on that, like, rhetoric when people say is because take any historical figure. I don't know if you can say this person, but the dude, the Austrian guy who, was leader of Germany back in the day, if that was Dana's homie back in the day who helped him, like, set up the events, are you then gonna be like, "Oh, well, dude, like, he helped out Dana back in the day, bro. Like, you gotta, like, show love to him." It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not
Correlation? Yeah.
really. That's
Yeah.
not really how it's supposed to be. But
Here's
also
why I'll push back on that if I can interject.
yeah, go
The
ahead.
UFC isn't known for taking care of their people. It was like what I was talking about earlier with Bilal and
Yeah.
Colby. When you think of like Frank Shamrock still isn't in the Hall of Fame, Mike Goldberg, they don't even talk about him. Demetrius Johnson, they don't talk about him. If you guys remember how they did Stitch and Burt, like
Yeah.
the UFC does not, it's not known for taking care of people that take care of them. And Trump tried to be in competition with the UFC. He just failed. You know what I mean?
Does
Yeah,
Like,
he have an
Affliction,
independent
yeah,
bro.
he
fight organization?
with
Yeah,
Affliction. Yeah,
Affliction.
yeah, he had his own
Oh,
fight organization with Fedor headlining, the number one guy outside the UFC, and they just failed.
a Russian?
Yeah.
Ooh,
That
nation.
I'm glad that you pointed out because I low key forgot about that. That is
I did
true,
not
bro. I
know.
actually forgot
Yeah,
about
so,
that.
like, on the one hand, while he did host events for the UFC in his hotels and casinos, he also tried to be in direct competition, and, like, had he succeeded, we wouldn't be, like he wouldn't have been given the UFC handouts, he wouldn't have been doing co-promotions.
And also, literally, so what? Like, I have these DVDs, like, I got from, like, the whatever, like, the thrift store or whatever, these UFC fights. I'm looking at it, and it's like, Mobile, Alabama. I'm like, "Okay, so people have given up their spaces for the UFC when they were smaller all the time." It's like, damn near says, like, Hyatt, the Hyatt is letting the UFC throw a event in here. It's like, I don't think that there should be a much of a correlation that at one point they needed help. Like, yeah, it was a smaller company back then. They needed support and a place to fucking throw it. It's not that he, like, sat there and, like, boosted Dana up and, like, picked him up by the bootstraps and was, his, like, mentor in the moment and be like, "Bro, no, keep going, like, you can do it." Like, I don't understand that. Yeah, when people make that correlation with each other, I'm like, and I'm sure that there's other people that helped out Dana White in the day back in the day that he has treated like garbage. Isn't there, who's the guy that he was supposed to fight, but then they
Oh,
never
Tito?
fought?
Tito
Tito
Tito?
Ortiz?
Ortiz?
Yeah, aren't they? Isn't I actually don't know too much about that, like, that situation, but it seems like obviously Dana holds a grudge. And weren't they, like, cronies? Weren't they locked in? Didn't they do the UFC
I think
thing together? Weren't they, like, friends in that regard?
he was Tito's manager, right? He was Tito and
Yeah.
Chuck's manager,
Yeah,
I
he was
think?
Tito and Chuck's manager, and then he, kinda switched up on Tito and went Team Chuck, and then that
Oh,
kinda led to
see?
that whole back and forth. The thing with me too about it is I think people are kind of forgetting the distinction that at least I can't speak for anyone else. But for me, when I say that I criticize the UFC's like alignment with MAGA, they're often mixing up the difference between fighters and the actual organization. If I'm talking about like the fighters themselves, so let's say like not even just MAGA, but like Bryson, Sean Strickland, Colby, whomever you want to throw out there, right? When I criticize them, people act like it's like a sin for me to be like, "Oh, I don't like them because of their views." And they're like, "Well, dude, why would you hate on them because of their views?" And I'm like, "Bro, y'all be hating on fighters for less. What are we talking about? Like, like y'all hate Bilal Muhammad, but what did Bilal ever do, realistically speaking? Like, I get that Bilal may not be everybody's cup of tea fighting wise. Like, I'm not even gonna sit here and beat around the bush with that. But I find that if a fighter's just boring, I have more like apathy. Like I'm just like, I don't really care to watch them fight. They're kind of boring. I don't go like, I hate Bilal Muhammad. I hate him. I hate him. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Hate watches are valid. Like y'all, some of y'all were the same people burning Nikes for calling Kaepernick. Like let's not do that. Let's not act like this is some new phenomenon. But
No, yeah.
with the UFC though, it's different because people say, well, "What about the NBA, dude? Dude, the NBA goes super woke, bro, and we let you libs have the NBA, so why can't we have the UFC?" And it's like, the truth is, the NBA isn't really woke, to be honest. They kind of just take like a pretty baseline regular stance. Like, for example, people are referring to back in 2020 when they were having players kneel and there was the Black Lives Matter stuff. But I'm gonna be real, that wasn't all that radical for the NBA to do. Like historically, sports organizations are not that radical. This is the same NBA that blackballed Muhammad Abdul Rauf
Uh-huh.
back in the '90s, who played for the Nuggets when he didn't want to do the national anthem. Right?
Mm.
It's the same NBA where when what's his face? I think Daryl Morey when he said something about free Hong Kong and they hit him with like the yeah, go ahead, delete that. Go take that down real quick. Same thing when Dwight Howard said free Palestine, they were like, oh yeah, go take that down real quick. Like the NBA really ain't this like social justice organization the way people make it seem. And if I'm really gonna say the quiet part out loud, they really just mean it's a lot of black dudes in the NBA, and they're not like full on going, oh, this Black Lives Matter stuff is stupid. So they call it like woke because that baseline is already like super low for them. That's me, really, personally.
Yeah.
That's what
I
I
was gonna say, they see a sport with a bunch of black people, so they automatically assume that, like, there's gonna be some, like, solidarity in that way when honestly they're just being I would say, obviously, the UFC fighters are getting exploited the very most out of sports, but it's still an exploitation in itself in other organizations when you have black and brown bodies entertaining people, and there's, like that's a whole conversation. People that feel that way about the NFL. I feel like the NBA, I don't know, I'm again I'm not like the best person to talk about that. If I were to think about it though, I'm more worried about like NFL players than I am NBA players. But it's funny with the whole wokeness thing because wasn't there a point in the UFC when there was a fighter who literally wouldn't answer questions and only answered with like Black Lives Matter?
Tyron Woodley, T
Tyron
Wood.
Woodley.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know what Dana's responsible for, but what was it? Because I'm pretty sure was he not like he has the right to say that? Or
I
was
think
he
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 like
did. I think he did, to be
yeah.
fair. I think Dana did defend it a little bit.
Yeah,
right,
there was
so
people in the community who
see.
were upset about, like, T Wood and then even some other fighters, like, one that kinda goes under the radar is Hakeem Dawodu. He's a Canadian black fighter, but he was talking about similar things as well, and a lot of the community was like, "Oh my gosh, why are you guys trying to bring this in there? Like, dude, just like" it was like the
Right,
shut up and dribble rhetoric with a lot of
right,
them. But I always believe when people say keep politics out of sports, I be thinking 9 times out of 10 they're lying. They really just mean keep the ones I don't like
right.
out of,
Yeah.
my sport. And to me, I'm actually a big misconception people have about me is I've never once said like insert whatever fighter can't say what they want to say. I just have the right to think that they're stupid. Like
Thank you.
me saying that I think Bryce Mitchell's an idiot is not me saying that I want him to go die. That ain't what I said.
Yeah.
I just said I think he's an idiot. Especially, and people think I'm talking about um the main thing people know for, which was the Austrian painter stuff. The part that really also got me, which people don't talk about, was what he said about Japanese internment camps, because that part kind of got left out, got mixed up. He literally said the Japanese internment camps that the U.S. did back in the 1940s under FDR were justified. Like he literally like and nobody really talked about it too much, because I do feel like a lot of rhetoric when it comes to the Asian community often does get like swept aside, but people just kind of didn't really. That's the part that I felt like when people were also like, oh, well, he said free Palestine, so we all forget. I'm like, come on, but I mean, I feel like that's a pretty low bar though, because Bryce Mitchell has done said a lot of stuff about a lot of different groups of people. And I get that the bar in the UFC is like real low. So like a fighter can literally just say, I don't hate minorities, and I think people should be allowed to marry who they want. And they're basically like literally the reincarnate of Malcolm X. But I
Yeah.
get it's a low bar. But at the same time, we do have to have like some standards. So I don't like Bryce Mitchell. But I'm not sensitive for not liking someone. You're more sensitive about like crying in my comment section talking about some, oh my gosh, you woke lib. All you do is bring politics in it. I'm just responding to what they said. Like, real talk, if the UFC and some of these fighters were not on this like type of tirade, I probably wouldn't even be super vocal in the way that I am specifically towards the UFC. I'd still be vocal in general, but just not in this context as much, because I'm only responding to what they're saying most of the time. I'm not just going out of my way to be like, oh, like I don't like Republicans in the sport, da 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 da. That's not what I'm saying. It's like Sean Strickland grabs the mic and goes like, oh, here's the thing, you guys, dude. Like women, like why are women even in the sport? We messed up when we gave women voting rights and we didn't like let them be traditional housewives. And I'm supposed to just be like, oh man, I don't hate Sean, man, dude. He's such an entertaining fighter, even though he's really not. He got one finish in like 10 years, and people are like,
Yeah.
oh, I love him.
Well,
But
and I
yeah.
think the funny thing is that it's so frustrating about that is that that people are like, "Well, he can say what he wants." I'm like, "Yeah," and like you said, like, "Yeah, me too. That's why I'm making this response video." But you're more keen on like respecting and like defending his right to say whatever he wants. But then when I start to say what I want about what he said, it's like, "You're weak. You're this. You're that. You're that." I'm like, so why is it only like the is it just because they're a public figure and that they are the only ones that can say things? Like I'm making response to the egregious things being said, yet you have a problem with that and you think that I'm a crybaby when it's like what did these fighters like especially someone inflammatory like Sean Strickland, I think he wants people to talk about it in this way as well. Like he wants people to have the conversation. I don't know if he was like really thinking that deep, like I'm trying to spark up dialogue, but he does like say it so that he can be talked about in that way. And I think it's similar to like Colby Covington. Obviously, I think he was doing it boosted up to that degree because it's a character. It's going to get him talked about. It's going to get people to watch the fights and stuff like that. I think Sean Strickland is a bit different in that situation because I think he just simply is that evil in real life as well. Like, I don't care for the character of Colby Covington, but I could see why it's a character because it's so theatrical. Sean Strickland, that seems deep rooted into who he is. Like, that seems like something that he on and off camera is speaking like. And yeah, it's just crazy that people on the internet want to defend these people so much, and then it's they hide behind the fact that, well, he can say that. I'm like, well, you can also just say you agree because I think that's where you're headed. Is that I think you just agree with Sean Strickland and you just want to defend him because you don't like that I'm attacking him. But just call it what it is. You agree with what he's saying, and that's weird. And I'll have something to say about that too. I'm just gonna have something to say about it literally all the time, and you're just gonna have to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah. And what Jay was saying earlier, um, about damn, I lost my train of thought. But about like keeping politics out of sports, right? People will tell you to keep politics out of sports, but they're the ones bringing politics into the sport, you know?
Right.
Like I'll post about the White House card and people will be like, "Oh, you're making it political." And it's like, how is this not political? How am I making it political? I'm just talking about what they're giving us. You know what I mean? Like, I literally
Yeah.
can't talk about just the White House card alone without it being somewhat inherently political because it's at the
The
main
house.
place of politics. Yeah, it's at the house of politics in America.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like people get it in different contexts. Like I told people, I say it like this. It's not sports washing. It's not only sports washing when it's just oil money, because people will have a lot to say with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and different other places like the UAE, where the UFC has went before, and also what we see in boxing with Riyadh season, UFC doing it as well. And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's terrible, da da da," and I agree. But this is what I'm saying. When it's the USA, now it's like, "Oh, but dude, isn't it just so cool though? We're at the White House, dude. It's not. You have to like, dude. I think people make mistake what political like actually means because I think they think when they talk about politics, it just means like, oh, well, if it's political, you're talking about like I actually really can't even rationalize it because I can't see how you can't not fathom how that this isn't just like something that's happening at the White House. It's happening on Trump's birthday. Trump is the one who is like pushing it and is like doing a lot of the promotion for it. And a lot of this is centered around him. People will say Freedom 250, then put it on July 4th, but obviously not. Like this is 100% a sports washing of the Trump administration that is becoming more and more unpopular day by day. Like we can talk about the list of black lines, the email files. We can talk about ICE. We can talk about all the whole 9 yards. Truth is, the UFC is associating with it and they are co-signing it, whether if you want to admit it or not. When you can't distance the two, you just
Mhm.
can't. Same even goes like for the other regimes because it's one thing, right? If you have an event in the US or Saudi Arabia or UAE, that's not inherently wrong because these are just locations. That'd be like saying the entire country or the entire people is bad. That's not true. But when you do go hand in hand with the actual regime and you start glorifying it, same like for example with Turkey Al Sheikh, so the Saudi royal family, you are then co-signing whatever atrocities, whatever things they do on behalf of it. Whether if you want to admit it or not, that is what it is. And I think the issue is MMA fans want to have cognitive dissonance with this stuff because it's easier. It's easy to just be like, yeah, I Dana White and them or my favorite UFC fighter doesn't actually support these like really terrible things because I like watching them fight or I like watching the UFC. Like two things just can't be true. Like some of my favorite musicians, some of my favorite writers, directors, whomever are like terrible, but I wouldn't then go, they're not bad because they make a thing that I like.
Mm.
Both things can be true. Terrible people make good stuff, bro. Like eh, I don't even know if I should name names because there's one name I want to say in particular, but people get really defensive about this one, so I'm not
You
gonna
could
say it.
say it. You could
Is it
say it.
Chris
Michael
Kanye
Brown?
Michael
West.
Jackson, bro. All right, I'll say it.
Oh,
Look,
okay.
Wait,
look, it's all
wait.
it's
I like how we all had a different name. I
What did
said
you say?
Kanye.
Oh, okay.
this is all I'll say. Like to not spend too much time on Michael Jackson. All I'll say is if any 30-year-old man admitted the stuff that he did, not saying he was guilty of anything people accused him of, I'm literally just talking about what he admitted to. Everybody would think that person's weird. Or we'll use R. Kelly too back in the day. Them. But if you make something that people universally like, people are willing to look the other way on it.
And
That's
black
why like
people love them some R. Kelly.
that's just what it is, bro. And that's the
Yeah.
same thing with the UFC. Like a lot of people, for example, I'm gonna use someone. This is where it gets risky on YouTube. John Silver, bro. John Silver, right? So there's this whole discussion on if he was supporting the blue and white nation over in West Asia. There's controversy because he said he didn't take a political stance on it, even though he showed up on what was it, like a news station that's very supportive of that regime over there. And he wore the shirt. He said, like, oh, I didn't even know anything about that. I'm just like, a very religious person from Brazil and that the Star of David. Like, that was his reasoning. I don't know, right? But a lot of people were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's exciting to watch. Like, dude, like Johnson was fun to watch fight. But I'm gonna be real. If Johnson was sucked at fighting and he was boring, nah, they would never let it go. Same thing with Bryce Mitchell. People pretend like they like watching Bryce Mitchell fight. But I'm gonna be real. The only memorable Bryce Mitchell fights are when he's getting like knocked out. Like Ilya, Josh Emmett, Edson Barboza's fight was cool. I'll give him that one. I'll give him that one. But other than that, he's generally like not that exciting to watch for the most part. Like if Bryce Mitchell's name was like Bramij Magomedov, bro, they'd be telling him to like get cut and go to ACA or something. The way he just fought Said Magomedov. That's just what it
Yeah,
is.
and it's really interesting too because I watched like, is it Gene or John?
I don't know. I hear people
I think I say
correct me and say it's
Gene.
John. But honestly, it
Okay,
could be
yeah.
either one.
Well, Gene Silva, I watched him fight in Seattle, like, that was my first live event. So irritating to watch because he just takes forever in a day. Really exciting fight. That was, like, the first, like that's, like, one memorable thing from that fight that I remember is that he was very exciting, and the barking was really exhilarating, right? And then it's so weird that somehow he got matched up with Bryce Mitchell before everyone started to turn on him for being a Gene, because it's like this guy said this crazy thing about the mustache guy, and everyone's like, "Boo, we hate that." And then it's like, "Okay, Gene Silva, do what you gotta do. You gotta get it done against this crazy Bryce Mitchell guy." And then it's like everyone was really excited about that, but then the turn of it all, when they find out that about what Gene supports, it's like it's weird. It feels like a whiplash in that moment where you don't like someone, which those are like closely related, you know what I mean? Especially with the mustache guy and the blue and white. You see where I'm trying to go with that? It's where he beat the guy who was in favor of the mustache guy, and then a couple months later, it comes out that Gene is a Z allegedly, and people hate him, and so it's like it's now the hate is just dispersed in both ways, and there was nothing really productive that came out of it because people were angry with Bryce for one thing and then angry with Gene for like the opposite version of that. So yeah, it's weird because people say keep politics out of it, but it's all just everything's inherently political. But it's really political within the UFC because we are thinking about these fighters in a personal level, and the things that they do affect how you feel about them, and a lot of times lately, that's been pretty political. So it's really funny for people to not want politics to be in sports and then be like, I can't even think of a good example, but like the switch where people now are like great noticers and they're making again like the edits of Diego Lopez in the Agartha or whatever the hell that place is called with the blonde
Yeah.
hair with the laser beam eyes because they want him to beat Gene Silva because he's apparently yeah, I don't wanna say the word, but you know what I mean. And so it's like you guys talk those are the same type of people with those extremist views who are like, "No politics." I'm like, "Is that not political in its own right like, way? Like, you're making this political yourself, but just because I'm speaking about Trump, then it's like, that's what they know as political because it has to do with, like, Democrat and Republican." So that's what I think you mean when you're like, "Oh," that's what I interpreted when you're like, people don't really understand what they even mean when they say political. They're thinking about it on the,
Yeah.
like, two-party system. But I'm like, you guys are taking this great noticing thing. It's like you guys are making it political too. You guys are doing your own
Yeah.
thing that you're making everyone
I
feel
was
bad
gonna
for, but you're
I was
doing
gonna
it.
say they only view it as political if it forces them to like take a look in the mirror at their politics. Because,
Yeah.
for example, they'll talk about the Chechen whore that is Hamzat. He's the Chechen whore for his dictator, right? But today, I think I posted this on my TikTok story. There was a GOP member in our country that was saying we're killing all the right people.
Mhm.
And I think he was talking in reference to Iran and maybe just overall in general. He just said we're killing all the right people. Like I like how things are going. And it's like that's not an insane thing for you to hear and for them it's not an insane thing for them to hear, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for us, that's an insane thing to hear. And if we were to bring that up, they'll be like, "Oh, you're unpatriotic," or like they'll try to like pretend like that's not crazy, but
Yeah.
then get mad when Hamzat's like with the Chechen dictator, even though the only difference is the dictator is just straight up about what he does, whereas when when the GOP member says we're killing all the right people, he then has to explain himself.
Yeah, I
Right.
think I'm gonna be real. The Kadyrov thing, I feel like a lot of it is fake outrage from people. Because like, I'm gonna be real. I'm not saying there's not critique of it, but let's actually think about this for a second. I don't know if Hamza still has loved ones who live in Chechnya, but I'm gonna make the assumption he probably does. It's probably not a consensual relationship. It's probably not that Hamza went out of his way and went, "Yo, Kadyrov, I love you, dude." Maybe if so, but the truth is, in that type of dynamic from where he's from, he doesn't get the choice. People make it seem as if like he just, because let's be real, there's fighters who are not from Chechnya who are cool with Kadyrov that
Going
willingly
to
go out of their way to
his
be cool with him.
teenage son's birthday party. And
Yeah,
listen,
like
that's like people. Here's the thing: people will blame that on Ali Abdelaziz, even though Kamaru Usman, Henry Cejudo, Justin Gaethje, they're grown men. They can say no.
yeah, they're not gonna
But
get forced.
they'll just blame it on the brown guy, the the brown guy
And
from that part of the world.
and the funny
Yeah,
thing is too, is that Hamzat literally also supports Trump too. So it's like you guys don't like it when it's this Chechnyan leader, but then you're watching UFC fighters do similarly. Yeah, Colby Covington cheesing hella big with with our version, right? And this the idolizing of this person who also does terrible things. I know that's subjective in my opinion, whatever, but it's the same thing where it's like Trump, I mean, Hamza has also been like Trump is a good guy too, but they always just want to focus like, oh, like Sean Strickland, that's his talking point all the time. You're always with that guy. You're always with that dictator. But it's like, dude, you have just as much love for your guy, not Strickland anymore, but like you have your coworkers are doing the same thing, but with our president. But you are
but
mad at Hamzat for doing that. Okay.
But you know what's crazy with Strickland? He was out here like on both of his knees from Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, let's not act like he's still beyond that. Like,
Right.
he's bringing Kyle Rittenhouse around, and Chris Curtis is like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Oh, I just forgive my friend Chris here. You know, he's a little lib." I'm like,
But
yeah, and
why my question is, and maybe this is me being too woke, but I'm not sure that's not the first offense of Sean Strickland, though, and him being friends with him in general. I'm not saying then in turn that he's a bad guy, but I don't know, like, I can understand why that's alarming to you as a black man. Obviously, he didn't like that, but I could not be around that even previous to the
I
Kyle
think
Rittenhouse situation.
the issue, I don't know how long they've been at the same gym, but it's kind of like being at a job and like being at a place of employment that is your career, you know, it's difficult to just up and
Separate.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris is. I'll say this. I know, we're like cool now, whatever. But I'll give my honest take on it. So at first, back in the day, him and Sean used to have the podcast, and they were like super buddy, like beyond just they train together. But then they had like these on and off again things where like they were cool, and then Chris goes, "Oh, I can't be around him no more. Like I distance myself from him." And now they're like, I don't know where they are now, but like to your point, you can't really be surprised with Sean Strickland when he does what Sean Strickland does. Like, I mean, you can't get mad at a snake for being a snake. Like, you can't get mad at a tiger for being a tiger. Like, it's just gonna do what it's gonna do. With Chris, I think I'll even say from my own experience, because I've trained with some people that are low-key some super villains, right? You kind of get put in a weird spot as an MMA fighter, especially if you're in a gym where geographically speaking, it's not maybe like the only gym, but realistically, that's where you can only train. You kind of just unfortunately it kinda comes with the territory. There's people I've trained with who I'm like, "Yo, that guy sucks," or "That girl sucks." Like, this stuff they be saying sucks, but you see him every day, you're just there, so there's only so much you can do besides just up and leave, but upping and leaving may not be a realistic, viable option for a lot of people. But what I will say, though, to that, I actually wanna pivot to someone in particular who I may make, like, that 4-hour video about, is Mighty Mouse. Because Mighty Mouse to me is such an interesting case of like pick me syndrome because I actually kind of get where it comes from. Not that I agree, but I understand. Because I'm gonna keep it a buck. When Mighty Mouse was fighting, majority of UFC fans did not care about him. Not even Dana cared about him. I mean, dude, when Mighty Mouse was pound for pound number one, you had Dana going like, I actually think Conor McGregor's pound for pound number one. I think he's a lot better. He beat Jose Aldo. Mighty Mouse, I don't think he's number one. And a lot of people who never seen Mighty Mouse or didn't even really know about him until he was done fighting are kind of now retroactively going, "Oh my gosh, man, how'd the UFC do Mighty Mouse so dirty?" But to be real, in real time, people were not advocating for Mighty Mouse like that. They were even saying like the flyweight division itself wasn't they didn't care about it because it's like, "Oh, I could beat up those little guys, bro. Like flyweight's a stupid division." And they were gonna get rid of it. If TJ Dillashaw had beat Henry Cejudo, that division would have been gone. So it really isn't true that people felt this way. I mean, some people probably did in real time, but that was not like the consensus opinion. Whereas if you hear it now, people go, "Oh my gosh, man, Mighty Mouse got did dirty by the UFC and he got traded." But that really, I don't really remember that being how people felt about it. But I say this to say that Mighty Mouse, as of lately, I think he's been trying to garner this more like young internet audience. And I know he had his whole thing with gaming and streaming, but it started to take this weird pivot when he started aligning with Guru and he did that RG3 interview. With the RG3 interview, I ain't gonna lie, like even though this is not gonna sound politically correct, I wasn't surprised that Mighty Mouse was the type of black guy to say that dating black women was like playing in the mud. I was not surprised by that. Like I'm gonna keep it real. I wasn't surprised by that. But then where he started to lose me was the MMA Guru thing. Now, it's one thing, I think, if you engage in like an interview or some type of podcast with someone like Guru, but you're coming at it from the perspective of like a more documentary or more like informative purpose. But when you start going, all right, this is me and Guru, I'm like, bruh, you're cool with Habib and them. You're cool with like all these
Yeah.
other people. Now, we could go one or two ways about it. Did Mighty Mouse know that Guru said that stuff? Probably. Probably did. Like people are saying, well, Mighty Mouse didn't know. Like he just bro, I could close my eyes, do like hit like the like skip button on a YouTube video or whatever, and just go to any timestamp on a Guru video, and you're gonna hear him calling them inbred like 10 times. Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean you
there will
didn't
be
know? That's
something.
you went into McDonald's and you know they didn't sell burgers? Oh my gosh, you didn't know that? I mean,
And
whatever.
that's what I said. I literally in my video, I'm like, "You cannot be surprised that MMA Guru is acting like MMA Guru because from the moment I found out that this guy existed, it was nothing but negative. I've never when he was presented to me, it was like with my friend, he was like, "Yeah, there's this guy, who did he go the hell off on? He went off,
I think it was Marab.
Yes, he went on his little tirade about Marab, and my friend was like, "Oh, it's funny, but it's terrible at the same time." He's like, "I just think his passion for this," because he also didn't like Marab. So he's like, "I can understand where he's coming from." But he had to like preface the video. He's like, "Hey, I'm about to show you a guy, and it's going to be terrible, but just know like this is how I feel about Marab." And I was like, "Okay." And then I'm like seeing this character of MMA Guru. So from the beginning that I had to be warned about MMA Guru because that's how bad he is. So for you for people to have that protection of DJ of like, did he not know? Even if he didn't, then that's just extremely irresponsible on his end at that point. If he didn't know, he still doesn't get a pass because of that. Because why are you letting people on your platform when you don't understand what their audience is or what their content is? Because then yeah, you're gonna get screwed either way. You're gonna get screwed because you know or that
I
you
just
didn't.
remembered he actually did know because so before they actually had the official podcast together, he actually, when they first spoke, and they did an episode together, he did tell Guru, I wasn't a fan of the Michael Chandler joke that you made. And if you don't know the reference, that people don't know the reference, Guru was basically doing impressions of people, and he was doing an impression of Michael Chandler's kids who are black, and he put on like the most racist black scent of all time. And Mighty Mouse basically was like, I wasn't a big fan of that. So you like did know. You knew this
Yeah.
and you were like, that's not my fine line. The fine line was when actual other fires start going, yeah, if you're still with them, like, we're not cool with you either. But why did it have to take that? Like, was not the blatant disrespect of black children just not like a hard line for you? Like, as a literal black guy, like that's to me where I've always wondered was the like if it didn't affect your money, if it didn't affect the actual like PR view, would you have stopped? You probably wouldn't have because you got into it in the first place. And that's kind of what I mean with Mighty Mouse, because Mighty Mouse weirdly is one of those fighters who is decently well known because he's one of the greatest of all time and yada yada yada. But again, a lot of his like attention didn't come until he was done fighting. Like, people
Yeah.
did not really care about him while he was actually there. So, I think there is this level of, I think, not re what's the word I would use? It's just kinda like, you got a dude who grew up, like, for example, who got told like, he said, "Black women didn't like me because I was weird," even though he
In
was just
Washington, by the way, which I can attest to making kind of not making sense, but it's
yeah.
a thing out here, being
Yeah.
black out here.
You hear,
Yeah.
like, the stereotypical thing of, like, black women didn't like me because I was into anime, but it's like, it wasn't necessarily that, bro. You were, like, doing Naruto running in the hallway, but that's besides the point, whatever. And then that person grows up, they get into a glow up era, they go into a healing era, whatever. They put on some muscle, they start, being like they start to get to that point where they're seen as, like, an attractive dude, and now they're just, like, trying to now appeal to, like, this side of men who were like the incels, that side of the crowd, even though Imma be real, they don't like you either. Like, they don't like Mighty Mouse the way that they think he did, and I think what happened was when Habib and them, or whoever made that call to him was like, "Nah, you gotta pick one." That's when it started to wake up for him. But I even see the same thing, and it breaks my heart to say it about this guy too, because I really liked him. Aljo. I'll be honest, dude. Aljo's a weird one to me because I don't know why you would try to gravitate towards this audience when they literally do not like you. Like, whenever you took the knee, you would have thought, honestly, that Aljamain Sterling, I was about to say something off the wall. Oh my gosh, I got to use a different comparison. You would have thought Aljamain Sterling was, oh my gosh, I'm trying to compare him to someone evil who's not gonna get us deep. Oh my gosh. Who is like a really bad person, bro? Like, yeah, someone give me a name.
Wait,
JE.
explain
Was
to me
that
what
one?
Aljo did. What did he do that's painting him in the same light as Mighty Mouse? I missed it.
So about a couple months ago, remember when Zoran Mamdani had just got elected?
Yeah.
So he went on this whole weird thing. He was like, "Oh, we're gonna be in more Mamdani stand or whatever." Da 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 da. And then he started going into this weird, like, kind of like dog whistle anti-Islamic rant. And and then what happened? I wish I could pull up the tweet right now if I could find it. But then he started going on this whole thing about like, oh, black people need to take more accountability. Like, all we do is shoot and kill each. And so that's when I was like, yo, time out, time out, time out, time out. I'm like, Aljo, what? And one thing that people do forget about, because this flew under the radar, he was like trying to be real buddy buddy with how do I put this? Tate, uh, that guy. And he was also saying that the whole COVID thing wasn't really that real, and it was all like that. It just kind of flew under the radar. But a lot of people started hating on Aljo because then they saw the anti-Muslim stuff. But it wasn't explicitly, but it was kind of like he was doing the whole thing
Alluded.
of, can we trust a guy like Zoran to really be like our mayor when he's like has these beliefs? Like,
Yeah.
and why do people not like it
Who's
when a Christian nation wants to remain Christian? Like that stuff, I was like,
is he even from New York?
yeah, he's from like
Isn't he from
upstate.
like upstate?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
he's from
Because
upstate
I
New
know
York.
people love to talk about it as if, like, it's affecting the whole country with Zoran Mamdani. Fuck, sorry. Zoran Mamdani. But, like, yeah, I was honestly surprised to hear that he's even from New York, because that sounds like a talking point that people have anyway, like, just the fact that they hate on him even though they're literally not even from New York themselves. But, yeah, and I feel like my question is, like, do you think that, because I have, when I was thinking about this topic, you have people like the just the whole fact that the UFC is a global sport that brings together like
Oh,
countries that you don't see, huh? You found the
I
tweet?
had found the tweet. So this is what he said. London Stan, please meet New York and Stan. It seems that people aren't paying attention to what's going on, and I literally barely pay attention to what's going on, and I can see this coming from miles away. So he's not explicitly saying, but you know what he's getting at when he says
I
London
That's
think I
worse
had
Stan.
than what
actually
you just
seen that.
described.
Yeah.
That is terrible.
That's actually worse than how I described it, to be real. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. So that's where
I bet
people.
you MMA Guru called that based, especially with the London Stan reference.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
were yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, there were people who were like, "Oh, now I forgive you for taking that knee," or whatever. It's like, do you not low-key feel insulted when people refer to you that way? They're like, "Oh, now we like you," just because
Yeah.
of that. But
It's a
I did
shock and
quote tweet him.
joy.
I did quote tweet and I called him a raccoon for that one. I gotta find that tweet though that I he said
Did he
he said
respond? I noticed he responds to a lot of stuff. I feel like
Aljo's weird, bro, because he's liked a few of my tweets and he's actually like responded agreeing with me, but he randomly didn't see that one where I called him a raccoon and it popped off. Like, it got a lot of views, but I didn't see him in the replies, so he must have just missed it. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, he missed it.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, I was surprised by the Mighty Mouse, like, playing in the mud comments, and I'm surprised by what you just said about Aljo, like, saying that black people gotta take accountability and whatnot. Like, I feel like a lot of black people are programmed like towards black hate, like self-hate when they're younger, especially if you're not growing up around a lot of black people. Like you said in Washington, right?
Mhm.
It's weird. In Southern California, it can get weird in some places.
Mhm.
Um, but at a certain point, and they're both almost 40 when they're saying these things. At a certain
Yeah.
point, you have to grow out of that, you know? Like you don't just
True.
like Jay said, you have the glow up, you start growing toward you don't grow towards the red pill like you I don't know. That didn't happen for me at least, you know? Like any internalized hatred I had, I grew out of it and grew towards like self-love rather than more self-hate and
Yeah.
like
And that's what
being
I'm
an other rather
Yeah,
than,
I I
you know what I mean?
okay, I found the tweet, but I can't find what he was so he was responding to somebody, but that tweet got taken down, but he responded by saying, "You're right. My black folks need to do better. Deep-rooted systems make these changes hard, but it starts with us now and the next generation." But the problem was that doesn't sound bad in isolation, but it was referencing like crime statistics, and I wish the yeah, it was something about the like crime statistics and something about like black people and that. That's what he was responding to. So it came off as like, I know my people be doing it, but there's things that make it hard. It's like, so I called him a rocket raccoon and dang, I got 313K views. He didn't respond to that one, and I posted like it was it, it was this. I don't know if it's like focusing.
LO.
Silence.
Well, that's my question is like, do you think that this, because I think we can all say this sport is inherently right wing. Like there's things about it, right? And so do you think that I guess paired with someone like Mighty Mouse, Washington, wherever, I guess he's upstate New York, whatever. They might already have these things about themselves previous to coming into this sport. But even growing up and practicing the sports and whatever it may be, I just feel like I don't really know too much about Marab, but I know that he has pandered to Trump before. But like, do you think? And I know that him and Aljo are really close friends. Do you think that the people that they surround themselves in this sport are not helping the case? You know, like I think that I mean I'm answering my own question where I just think that probably isn't very helpful. But do you think that they're pandering to within each other as well? Like do you think they're being pick-me's within their lives? Like, do you think that Aljo is like kind of dancing around with Marab in that way, or
I would
whoever they're
say
around.
so, like, speaking for Aljo, I can't speak for Marab as much, but, like, Aljo, a black man growing up in America that wrestled I didn't wrestle at his level, but I wrestled in high school. You grow up around a different, like, group of people as other than, like, if you would've played basketball, if you would've played football. I wrestled and I
Right.
played football, and the wrestling group completely different than the football group, you know what I mean? So I can see if you're wrestling to that level where you're going like he probably started in like maybe middle school all the way up to college, and you're just constantly surrounded by that group of people, especially in certain parts of the world or certain parts of the country, you know, like especially like Marty from Nebraska, like places like Nebraska, places where wrestling is the sport. I can imagine you would grow up tap dancing.
Yeah, and I think that's what's and I don't it's not even necessarily benefit of the doubt, but again, as like well, I get called whitewashed damn near daily. Not really, I'm being dramatic, but still, it's like something I had to grow up myself. So like I can have some empathy for that, but it's what you do with it, like you were saying. Like you grow up and yeah, if
Yeah.
you're fucking 40, why are you still acting like this? Like you need to
Playing
have some
in the mud,
agency.
like, that's genuinely insane. Like,
Right. And you're
his
gonna
I
sit
I don't know
here.
what, Aljo has does he have a daughter? Do we know? Or not Aljo, Demetrius Johnson, excuse me.
Does he have a
Or
I actually don't.
just
I know
I don't
he
know
Yeah,
if
has
because
he
oh no, it was DC, never mind.
I
He
think,
but
Mighty Mouse has 2
regardless,
sons, regardless of.
if he has a son, a daughter, like, imagine if a white person was saying they're playing in the mud about your kid, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you gotta look at things from that perspective, and if that doesn't change your mind, I don't know what will,
But he would be
but
giggling because think about how
yeah,
he's talking with
yeah,
MMA Guru.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I think that that's something I wanted to talk about too with just other like the UFC being a global sport and global in the way that we don't see until the Olympics. Like literally all different countries coming together to represent their country and it's in like this crazy way showing the test of their strengths and things like that. I think that's obviously beautiful and it had the opportunity to be something super beautiful, right? But then you see people from all these different countries that would generally not be accepted in the current administration we have. They're brown, they're Muslim, they're whatever it may be, yet they're pick me's for our administration. It's very frustrating to me to see like, someone like Uncle I would be like, "Oh, no, we like Trump." And I don't think that he's really, like, the main target for someone like Trump, but I'm like, you would not generally be, like, respected by this man. He would not want to, like, chat with you, and yet people are not understanding, and you're, like, coming from a different country. It's like, are you not really clued in? You must not be, like, seeing what's happening with ICE. You must not actually be understanding, like, the severity of what's happening in this country to be so eager to support someone like this. It's something that has really confused me.
J I look at it as similar to, I think, on the flip side, what's happening with boxing. Like, if you watch a boxing main event afterwards, they're picking up the mic and they're going, "Turkey Al Sheik, I wanna thank you so much, bro, for putting on this event." And, like, people who are suffering under that regime would go
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh my gosh." Like, so I think there's a little bit of when it comes to the guys who are outside of the US, not to, like, justify it, but I think some of them are generally pretty ignorant to the actual impact of but also some of them, culturally speaking, may not even be that different to what the Trump administration actually believes in terms of social values. So they may
True.
even though there might be a disconnect with Trump if they were just like a regular person, how you would feel, they do align in some of those areas more than people would like to admit probably. But I think a lot of it comes down to the nature of the UFC specifically, not just even the sport of MMA, but the UFC specifically. What do you hear almost like every time a fighter gets some type of finish or exciting fight? Well, not anymore because they still do it anyway. Dana, can I get a bonus, bro? Please, 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 can I get a bonus? Like there is a nature of desperation that exists throughout the UFC fighters. You always like you got Jared Cannonier talking about, I gotta fight again because I'm broke. Like
Yeah.
there is already a bit of like a class issue where a lot of them just generally in their career field can't afford to ruffle the feathers or they're going to get put in a really bad situation. So I think a lot of them use this as some type of leverage to as like a means to an end where they're like, if I like, start saying I love Trump and did it. I mean, shoot, it worked for Bo, it worked out for Steve Garcia. Like Steve Garcia was a huge buddy buddy with the Kirkinator. And look where it got him. It got him on the White House car. We gotta look into Dawkins, bro. How did he end up there? Let's look into Dawkins. Like, how did he because maybe we're missing something because everybody was like, how did Kyle Dawkins get here? But his brother was a cop, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Wait, sorry. And now I'm feeling like you, Isaiah, I guess. Is Steve Garcia not that like Australian guy with gray hair?
No.
No, Steve Garcia is
That's who I'm thinking of.
that's what's funny about being on the White House car is a lot of people are like they vaguely maybe know of him, but
I know
he's
that
a
name, I guess.
he's a Mexican American guy. He's
Here's the thing,
fighting
though,
gig.
if you heard the name Steve Garcia, you'd always be like, "I know that name,"
I
because it's
need
just such a
to.
generic name. It's such
I
a
need to
generic
look at the
name, and
And
that's
his
what
his
I
name.
nick
mean.
his nickname is the Mean Machine. The
Exactly.
Mean Machine.
I need
No,
to
he
find this who I'm thinking of.
listen, people have told me he's a really exciting fighter,
But he
and
is though. He is exciting.
yeah. I think I watched one fight. He fought David Onama, right?
Yeah.
I think I watched that fight. I think I ended up tuning into that. I think I watched it after it happened. After everyone was telling me how exciting he is, I was like, okay. I don't know if I remember it, but I will be watching the Diego Lopez fight. But that's what I mean. Like, you would always say, "Oh yeah, I've heard that name, Steve Garcia." It's such a
I
and there's you
That's
That's
thought
who I
Steve
you
thought
thought
Urkel.
Steve
Steve
Garcia was.
Yo,
Urkel.
Steve Urkel. You thought,
I
oh my
literally
god.
was sitting here thinking, how the fuck they get an Australian on the card? Okay. Okay. But yeah, there's just and then it's gonna just be like for people who don't watch the UFC, it doesn't really matter. Like they're just gonna be like, oh, I'm seeing a thing, you know? Like so I just don't even think that they worried about having name value for it because it clearly wasn't for us. This was not for fans. This was not for somebody who's like they didn't have it in mind the way that they were talking about it. They hyped it up as if this was gonna be like UFC 300 part 2, you know? Like and so yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter if they have John Jones on the card because
You read my mind because I was just about to say something. I was about to say, I don't know how I went through all those people and I literally forgot about John Jones being like a big token. Because,
oh, duh, that's the biggest. That is a fun size arcade token
but
right there.
Isaiah made a really great point because generally in a vacuum, I do feel for John Jones' situation with the UFC because they are 100% doing him dirty. And for all that he has contributed to sport, I mean, he, to most people, is the greatest of all time. And he defined an entire era. Despite everything he's done, like, trust me, I'm one of John Jones' strongest haters living right now. But he is being exploited by the UFC and they are doing him dirty. Like, he's in a very bad situation. At the same time, though, if I'm being petty, bro, like I'm not happy that it's happening, but I don't feel bad for him. I feel bad for like the system of itself being able to where a guy who's achieved arguably the most in the sport of all time can basically get told, even though he took the belt with Trump, and he goes like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
And
a little
then
boy.
someone put me onto this, and I can't confirm this, so I'm going to just say this is all alleged. But allegedly, John was blue for the longest time. But then when Trump got elected the second time, he then did the whole shift of like, oh yeah, I love Trump, da 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 da, and all that. And because y'all remember when he was getting called woke because he didn't know that negro was like a Spanish word for black, so he saw it on like the
Yeah.
jeans rack, and he was like, I can't believe as a black man they're putting negro up there, and everybody was like,
You're
no.
just more stupid at that point.
He is a little like not the smartest guy in the world, but
Yeah.
with John Jones though, it's so odd because you would think you're the baddest man on the planet in this moment, right? You're the heavyweight champion. And your first thought is, where is Trump right here so I can give him my belt that you did it, and you're just like you're more hyped about Trump holding your belt than you actually winning the fight. That's where it's just so jarring that
And people will think that's normal.
like that is actually cult behavior. That is
Yeah.
so odd, bro. Like I can't recall. I actually cannot recall whether, to be fair, there's not a UFC equivalent to this because there wasn't like Obama or Biden in them going to the fights. But even like when players like visit the White House, like I don't recall them like, for example, Obama or Biden going like, oh my gosh, Obama and Biden, bro.
Yeah.
That love you so much. But with Trump, like half of them, they start acting a fool in there, bro. Like
Literally bowing. Like, how are you getting on your knees for a man and going like this, presenting him with something? That is crazy. And then when you see that Islam gets off, not Islam, ooh, pardon me. Hamza gets off the plane and what's his name? Krybov? What?
Kadyrov.
Kadyrov has
Kadyrov.
the belt on his arm and Hamzat's walking behind him and people are like, boo, man. They didn't even let him walk in with the belt. He had to give it to his leader and this and that. John Jones doing a jig, literally doing a jig for the man.
And Kayla Harrison too, by the way. Kayla Harrison, that one. Now I'm gonna keep it a buck. Am I surprised Kayla Harrison is on that side? Not really. Like, I'm not that
Yeah.
surprised. But she was like advocating for something. I can't remember what it was exactly, but she's like one of those like,
She was
you
at
know,
the White House.
like women's empowerment. But then she sees Trump and she's putting that on around the waist, and I'm like, hey, look, he probably thought you were Ronda Rousey. Like, what are we doing?
You got cataract. Like,
Like, he probably didn't even know.
yeah. Well, and that's
Well,
funny because then you think about John Jones being a black man doing that for Trump. Kayla Harrison being a woman doing that for Trump. Henry Cejudo. Come on, bro. You can say you're not Mexican all day.
Former Mexican. He's
Doesn't
he's a
matter.
former Mexican. Former.
I was
Oh
thinking
yeah,
about
that's him.
Cejudo earlier. He'll like go to Chechnya before he'll go to Mexico. Like that's such a strange. Like he'll
Right.
rep the Chechen dictator before he reps anything Mexico.
And you
It's
know
so
what's
weird to
funny
me.
about Henry too, because he'll say, "You'll never see me repping that Mexican flag. I'm an American first." When literally we have footage of you. I believe it was in the Aztec gear walking out, and you were waving the Mexican flag like earlier in your career, bro. And shoot, it genuinely blows my mind because I don't get how Cejudo is not self-aware enough to understand that they're not gonna pick you, bro. Like Cejudo, you retired and you were like, "I'm retired. I'm trying to get more money." And the UFC was like, "All right, Jan, Aljo, y'all ready? All
Yeah.
right, let's go." Like, and they're like, all right, Cejudo, you're back, kid. All right, you lost to Aljo. All right, we got best we could do is Marab. All right, Peyton Talbot kid, yeah. You want him? Okay, cool. You got a video package? All right, go,
I know,
go,
and
go.
he sat there to have that little emotional moment with them in the cage, and they were just like, "We come on, next, we gotta go. Like, we got other stuff we
Bro,
gotta do, man."
Anthony Smith got more love than Henry Cejudo, bro. Dude, they had Jelly Roll, and all these people giving a speech to Anthony Smith, and he's like crying with
After
his
he
family
literally
there.
flipped someone off in the crowd, and during his retirement as
Yeah,
well.
and Henry Cejudo, dude, they were just like, I think they did give him a package, but they were like, all right, cool, bro. Like, you can go, you can leave now, please.
Yeah. No, it's crazy to think that there's so many okay, unfortunately, yeah, it makes sense that Colby Covington is this. It makes sense that Michael Chandler is this. Like, but then when you see the people that you're like, bro, it's like that meme. I hate that it's AI, but it's like the brown person looking in the mirror and seeing a white person. I'm like, you're not them, bro. Like you're not them. You never will be them. And I don't even feel like you I don't even think that Henry Cejudo can go through his life and be like, I feel liked and accepted by these people. If you're on the internet, bro, you know that people don't rock with you. There's no the facade is being broken all the time. I don't understand why they keep it up when they know that people are seeing right through it. Henry Cejudo, if you're getting on Twitter, you're seeing people talk shit about you. How can you keep up with that life if you're constantly being shown that these people actually don't respect you? You know what I mean?
You
Like,
know what's funny about Cejudo too? Do y'all remember when him and Kamara were arguing about like racism in America? Because Kamara was talking about how if you and I get pulled over by a police officer, do you think we're gonna have the same experience? And Henry went, "Oh, Kamara, I don't know about that, man. America, dude, everyone's equal, dude. I don't know what you're talking about." Like, and Kamara was like shocked by this, and I'm like, Kamaru is such an interesting case for me, bro. Because I'll say this. Kamaru, I remember one of the first fights that me and my family and friends were like really invested in was Kamaru versus Colby 1. Because I remember the whole visual of like Colby with the MAGA hat. You got the Nigerian American facing off. Like that was one of our greatest hate watches of all time. So then, like, fast forward a few years later, when Kamaru had popped out with Trump and them, and then he's like, I know Henry's been like his friend for like what for like a minute already, but when he was shocked that Henry Cejudo was like, yeah, systematic racism, I don't really think that's like a real thing, bro. I think that's just kind of like we're past that. And Kamari was like, well, Henry, you don't think like let's be real. There are systems in America that treat black people different. And Henry's like, I don't know, man. Like Henry was literally like dismissing him. Like, I don't know, man. Just like think about LeBron James, man. Like LeBron James, dude, he makes all that money. Is there really like is there really a problem with black people nowadays? And Kamaru was like so shocked by this, and I'm like, why?
Right,
Like,
and you couldn't
what?
even pick someone in the same sport as you, by the way. You had to pick someone even equally more successful than the 2 of you sitting there. Like, you have to take an example of, like, somebody that's not even in your realm. Like, that's crazy that you can't even pick one of your colleagues to say that's a successful black man that doesn't face what you deal with. Yeah, no. He's
If you
I don't
see the
think that.
clip, it's just so funny because literally, like when Kamaru like is like going on about this, Henry just goes like, I, I just don't think, man, it's like that anymore. I just don't think.
When
Bruh.
people are like first generation Americans and they renounce the country that their parents came from, it's usually a clear sign that they think that way.
That is very true. That is true. And people will like be like, "Oh, Kamaru, you're not really Nigerian, bro. You left when you were like a kid and da 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 da." And then they'll say the same thing to Izzy and they'll say to Izzy. I don't They don't really say it to Francis. They kind of did with Francis a little bit, but they'll be like, "Yeah, dude, you're not really African. Drickus is more African than you." And I'm like, that's not how it
No,
worked,
I
bro.
hate that. That
Yes,
is
because
so
my parents moved me from the country that I lived in and I was born in. I'm no longer African, even though we're all from like different countries. Where like they're acting like they're all from South Africa, but that's like a whole different discussion. But Cejudo, I mean, I don't know if Steve Garcia would be repping Mexico because I'm pretty sure he is Mexican American, but I never seen him, to my knowledge, rep it. But I mean, to be real, he does just look like a white dude to me. I'm gonna be honest.
I thought
Yeah,
it was that guy, so
he thought it was Steve Harrison.
I literally was imagining him the whole time. But it's funny too, because then it's like, then Fluffy can't represent Mexico. It's weird how they pick and choose, like, who can represent what. But and, like, I obviously don't have a problem with it, but then, yeah, Diego Lopez, a Brazilian, is representing Mexico. But then somebody who actually has ways to prove that they're genuinely from Mexico, they're like, "No, no,
They
no,
didn't
no,
just
no."
look at him like what was the whole holdup? Like, I'm sorry, like a guy named Anthony
What else? Yeah.
Hernandez who looks like that.
Yeah.
We're gonna need some proof that like you got Mexican roots. And I'm like, bro, when did the UFC start getting like stingy with like country representation? Because I remember a lot during the Reebok era and even early Venom era, there was people just rocking flags that like literally had no correlation because they just liked the color of it. Like I'm trying to think of like a prime example. If I could, my memory could be serving me wrong, but I swear to you, I remember when Gilbert Burns fought Kamaru Usman, he wore Nigeria because it was like green and white. Now I could totally be wrong, but I swear that did happen.
I'll fact check you.
Or you had like people like Brandon Allen, bro. He's rocking Canada because I guess his like grandparents are Canadian, but he himself is like from Louisiana. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like, or Mike, what's his name? Mike Chiesa. He'd be wearing Italy, but he's from like Spokane, Washington.
Well,
Period.
way back in the day, Marcus Davis, the Irish hand grenade,
Oh,
he's from like Boston.
Yeah, because like, but the thing is that from what I understand is that you can kind of do that. Like, that's what I thought the
Yeah,
UFC was, that you could
yeah.
just do that type of shit, and you could just be Chinese one day, you could be Irish the next fight, you could do that, and I feel like and that's the other thing, again, to bring it back to the politics, the UFC seemed a lot more lax on a bunch of things, especially with the way that Dana thought about things. And then all of a sudden, now it's all the inner workings, the politics of it all is, yeah, denying people to be able to represent their like legitimate heritage. You're telling me, yeah, Fluffy Hernandez does not look like a Mexican? Insane. Like, that's a Mexican. Let him walk out. And then everyone's like, oh, it's because they already like are pushing for a Mexican champion and they want this, that, and the third. Okay, well then add him to the list. I don't understand why you can't just add him to the list. Like, there's already so few that can have the
yeah, like
potential to be a
People
champion.
didn't think Cain Velasquez wasn't like a real like Mexican. I get that he's was he from Arizona or California?
Arizona. I think he
Arizona,
wrestled in Arizona.
but a lot of Mexican community was still rocking with Cain Velasquez despite that. I don't think like that to me was just still so odd because I'm like, his last name's Hernandez, bruh. Like, the verification should just be Anthony Hernandez just walks in the room, you're like, "Alright, cool, bro. You're good, you're good, you're
Yeah.
good."
That part because I feel like it seems so UFC-ness to be like, "Oh, no, you have to be straight." Like, I feel like you would see the discourse on TikTok being like, "Actually, it doesn't count because they're not directly from there." But then when you think about those people, like, even if someone who was, like, half Japanese was a champion, the Japanese would be like, "Yes, thank you." You know what I mean? Like, I think that the representation matters regardless, where there's gonna be people who ride for whoever is representing their country, whether they're, like, a quarter, you know? If they at least if they were to, like, walk out with that flag, that is representation enough for that whole entire group of people that I feel like that is low key what the UFC is feeling about the Mexican aspect, where, like, they genuinely need to be from Mexico. Even if Diego Lopez won against Volk the second time, he would technically be the Mexican champion. But then again, a Brazilian man. But I would say, I think it's all fair that he can represent Mexico and the Mexicans can be, like, fully okay with that and feel represented by Diego Lopez. That's for everyone else to decide. But then, yeah, it seems like there's the politics of it. They need to be right where they're from, and it's yeah. Because what? People also think that technically, I've seen that like, oh, technically we did have a American champion because Marab is American and he got his citizenship, so like he's technically American at that point. And it's like, okay, I guess then if we're gonna play the semantics of it all, sure, why not? Then there's
You know what's
other
crazy? People
countries.
just don't count Kayla Harrison in the American champion conversation, like, she just doesn't exist to people. That's
I
what I
just feel like women. I mean, like I think they probably just weren't even thinking about the women aspect at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't lie. Sorry, y'all. Same. A lot of times, same. It's something that I really do need to work on as a woman. It actually does. Like, I sometimes sit and think about it. I'm like, shit, I really don't know
Uh,
anything about women's MMA. And I really want to learn because I see you guys talk about it, and I see, especially Marauder talking about Rose all day, that I think that there is it's something I do want to learn about. But
I
then
told
I'm in Vegas and I watched the Rose fight and I was like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired.
well,
This is not very
so
interesting."
the issue with, like, boring women's fights is there's so much fewer women's fights that,
True.
like, you're gonna notice the boring ones more often, that's what I
Right.
always tell people, but I told myself with, the women's and the men's hockey teams winning gold, and then, like, Trump called the men's hockey team, and he was like, "Oh, I have to invite the women," and everyone laughed. I was like, "Okay," like, when I do these videos of, like, every blank champion, every fighter that's done this. Normally, I just do men because like
Mhm.
most people only want to pay attention to the men. But I told myself after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna always include women. Like I'm not gonna do it separately. I'm not gonna do it women first, then men, two
Yeah.
separate videos. I'm gonna always include women from now on because like there's no reason not to other than me thinking that people don't care. And it's like, okay, if don't talk about it, then they will continue to not care.
Mhm.
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think if the content is interesting enough and they're gonna watch it all the way through, yeah, might as well make them listen about the women.
Yeah.
Ye
And yeah.
I'll actually shine light on one of the beefs that got really, really underrated. So, you know that one lady, Eileen Perez, the one that be, shaking her bum?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there was an underrated beef that she had with this girl named Jocelyn Edwards, where see, if this was basically like Muhammad Mokaev and Manel Kape basically, but low key like worse. So like Josh and Edwards before Island Perez was fighting this one girl, she literally punched her in the face and gave her a black eye. So if you notice with one of Eileen Perez's fights, I can't remember who she was fighting, but she already went in with a black eye. They were like beefing like on site. And then when they actually fought, it was actually like a solid fight. But I think the problem is though, is there's obviously a huge misogyny element that goes into where a lot of people are overly critical of women's MMA. But like Rack said, women's MMA just has a very small pool in the UFC, but it's also just relatively new. Like I was
Mm.
actually doing some research like earlier about what was that girl's name? Matoya. What's that girl's name? She was like one of the first like
Uh,
what's her name? Montoya. There was that girl. I can't remember her
UFC
first name.
fighter or pre-UFC.
she never fought in the UFC, but she was included in the UFC video game. But she fought
Was she
Megumi
in, like,
Fuji.
one of the early video games, like Sudden Impact or
Yes,
something like
yes, Sudden
that?
Impact
I know who you're
Montoya.
talking about.
But
Yeah, I forget her name.
like she often gets forgotten about when people think of like the first like American woman that really put women's MMA on the map, it'd be usually Gina Carano.
Yeah.
But, um, the first, I think, woman, though, that people were at least aware of generally was Megumi Fujii, the Japanese woman. But the first mainstream one was Gina, and then probably I'd say Ronda. Ronda is when you saw women go into the UFC, and even though Dana was like, "Women will never fight in the UFC." "Oh, Ronda, you can get me, like, 1,000,000 pay-per-view buys? Alright, yeah, get in here. Yeah, never mind, it's all good." But I always say fights are boring because the fight itself was boring, not because of, like, any inherent, like, reason, whether if it's weight class or gender. Because like, I'm like, for example, I'll use heavyweight. Heavyweight does have a higher percentage of guys who are boring to watch because they can only go for, like, 2 minutes, but there are some exciting dudes in there, like, I'll keep it a buck. Like, there are some exciting dudes to watch, but same thing with flyweight. There's some guys at flyweight who I'm like, whatever. But the problem is because flyweight doesn't have that marketing push that other divisions do, it generally got known as like a boring division up until very recently, maybe. When
Yeah.
you now got Van, you got Cop, you got Pantoja, Moreno, and all of them. Not really Moreno no more. Kavanaugh, Kyoji. Both the women. What's going on with the women right now is the main person who I felt like was leading that charge was Zhang Wei Li. Like Zhang Wei Li, because she really only had like I think she only really had like one semi-ish, not that great fight. The one with who was it? Yao Xiaonan, maybe. That one wasn't like the best fight in the world, but generally all of her fights are pretty entertaining to watch for the most
What's the
part.
last one?
I feel like that fight wasn't even that
Shevchenko.
bad.
Oh, Shevchenko, that was the one
The
that people
Shevchenko
That
were.
one
was
was
the one.
boring, but
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
was
I
on
was gonna say,
Shevchenko.
I
yeah.
could pick one.
The Yan Xiaonan one wasn't that. I think the issue was that was after Max and Justin, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
300?
yeah,
Bro, yeah,
300.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Literally,
yeah,
like the
that'll
fight
do
right
it.
after, and like Yan Xiaonan got put to sleep, like with a choke, got knocked out, low
Yeah, it
key.
did
Like
happen, but it
she
was,
got
like,
finished a
after
couple times
but
within the decision.
it was after, like, I think round 3 where the fight kinda just played out, like, kinda just, because, like, she already
Yeah,
had finished her, but there was not really much more Zhang Li could do in that point. But what I was getting at, though, is I think also the problem was there was, like, a huge power balance between, like, Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko, and then 115 was the only one that really had parity for the longest time between Joanna, Zhang Weili, then Andrade a little bit, and Rose. Like, there was at least this. Whereas when Nunes came in right as when she beat Ronda and then she beat everyone else, then 145, the only person that gave Nunes some pushback was Cyborg, but then Cyborg ended up going away. So then you had her fighting I'm not oh my gosh, not guys, girls like Felicia Spencer and Megan Anderson. And then it took until we got to Juliana Pena, right? Once
Mm.
we got to Juliana Pena, then there was still a little bit of like a rivalry, but people still felt like it was a fluke. And then it kind of got, proved a little bit more in the rematch. But I think a lot of it though, the women's MMA is I think because it's still very new in the grand scheme of things, you just got to give it more time. I think give it like 5, 10 years. It'll be like where people see like lightweight, because lightweight at one point, that wasn't a real division. It was just BJ Penn, Uno, and nobody. Like,
yeah.
they didn't even have, like, title fights for years, so
I think
I
they
don't
didn't
think
have
any
a
of this is
champion from 2002 to 2006, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's interesting too because I think the thing that made me even watch, like, or be interested in, combat in sports in general. Well, like, it was during the Jake Paul thing, so I clicked on the Jake Paul thing, and it was right during the women's fight, and to see that, like, right before the main event, like, that's what the one always talks about, she literally split her eyebrow open, and I was like, "Wait, that's really exciting." So, like, I think it's crazy that the first fight that I really saw was 2 women, and I was, like, so exhilarated by that, and then to come into, like, the sport for MMA, which that's all debatable at this point. Yeah, and I just don't really pay attention to the women. And what was it? This last fight, they did they inducted
Joanna and John Wei Lee.
oh my god, I wish I could have seen that live. Her head
I saw that
exploding to that
Yeah.
live. I was
size.
there at that event.
Oh, oh. To watch it grow in size would be actually crazy. And yeah, so it's like that's what I wish I could do because I've obviously heard people talk about Wei Li for a long time, and I don't remember the last time she fought. Did she fight in China the last time she fought before Shevchenko?
Who did she fight?
Shevchenko?
Yeah, but before that,
Before
I
Weili fought Shevchenko, what was her last fight before that?
Her last fight had to have been, I think, Suarez.
Oh,
Tatiana
was it
yeah,
in
Suarez.
China
yeah.
though?
Nah, it was in oh, it was?
No, I'm not sure. Let me
I
see.
wa No.
Well,
No, it
because
was in
Suarez?
I think the thing
Australia.
is that
I think
I was like,
okay.
oh wait, with
Tatiana Suarez.
and but the card was the main event was Strickland.
I think it was
Yeah,
Strickland and
Strickland, Du Plessis
DDP.
too.
Okay, I see, because I remember not watching that card. I was in Canada at the time, but um, I was like, "Oh, Wei Li, like I have yet to see Wei Li fight. Like I'm a new fan. I hear talks about her all the time." And then yeah, it sucks. Like with your point, like there's so few women's fights, so then when they are boring, that's what you remember. And yeah, the first Wei Li fight I saw was Shevchenko. So it's not that I have like a preconceived like now I'm like, "Oh, well, then I'm not gonna watch Wei Li anymore because that one fight was boring." But like yeah, I guess the 2 women's fight that I've, like, really been present for, I suppose, were just not that interesting. But that doesn't mean I don't think that that's a possibility. But, yeah, with that said, there's not enough to move that to remove that thought about women's fights. I don't
Yeah.
even there might be women's fights on the Seattle card I'm going to, but I actually don't remember. I don't even know what that card is looking like.
I just think that's
But
Izzy and Pfeiffer, right?
One
yeah, and I
thing
think that I need to walk away from that because I have a curse where the main event gets fucked up when I'm there live. I
One
was
thing
there
I always
for
tell people about women's fights is the UFC, I think it's on its 33rd year now. For the
Mhm.
mm,
first, if we're talking about just the UFC alone, for the first 20 years, there was no women's fights. And like for
dang,
the first what would that have been, like 17 years, there was no flyweights, to Jay's point about flyweight. So that means everything prior to that for 17 to 20 years, all the boring fights were men and
yeah,
men above even like 145. Like it was
yeah,
155 and up.
they're big and
Yeah.
bad.
It was
Mhm.
all the all the weight classes everyone loves so much. All the boring fights were those people. And I try to explain that to people, but it doesn't resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I wish there was more room for, like, growth in this sport. I think I've seen hundreds of videos of people talking about, like, what would you change in the UFC? And there's obviously so many, but I just yeah, if it's only been that long since those things have been added, it's time for some more stuff. There's time for things to get rid of stuff. Like, I just wish there was more improvement of the sport because what I wanted to bring up was what like this sport is clearly going downhill. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on something like influencer boxing or boxing in general? Like that seems to have more traction. That seems to have more benefits for fighters or just like things that people are talking about more. I don't even necessarily mean about like community at this point, but like I have an opportunity to like work with somebody to do some influencer boxing, not me fighting, but like interviewing people and like I'm like it's hard because I don't really care. I don't really care about an influencer boxer. Like, I don't care to see a Jake Paul point 2.0, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to progress myself in the sport of mixed martial arts or whatever it may be. And the UFC, I don't think that's the case anymore. So it's like, I just want to get your guys' opinion. Like, do you think that's the next best big thing?
Ooh, so I think this is like a twofold question. So MMA as a whole, I was hearing Luke Thomas talk about this. MMA is weirdly losing popularity, not in terms of like people watching, but actual participation. I have to find the stat, but there's been less MMA events globally speaking being thrown. But I think that's also a byproduct of the UFC eating up a lot of the organizations in the US, and then regional MMA just doesn't make a lot of money in America specifically. Um, the UFC declining in terms of, I think, popularity. I don't know if there is a necessarily a decline in viewership, but I think there is a decline in overall sentiment around the UFC so far. Now, I do believe there's like cycles of fans. I think I'll speak for myself, right? Around like 20 after Conor won the second bout against Eddie Alvarez, I stopped caring about MMA until Izzy, like in 2019. So I didn't see Habib and Conor. I didn't see whatever was happening between like 2017 and 2019 up until when Izzy fought Whitaker the first time. I didn't tap in because people do generally go in, they go out, and some people come back or they just leave. And I think there's a mixture of factors. I think a lot of people got alienated by the MAGA stuff.
Mm,
Also, people do just kind of grow out of it
mm,
compared to like other sports. Whereas like with basketball and football, those tend to be more lifelong sports. Whereas MMA does get treated like a phase to some people. But the UFC, they've kind of won. Like there's no Strike Force, there's no Pride, there's no WEC, there's nothing. There are alternatives, but they're outside of the scope of where they're not trying to market to Americans. Like Ryzen, I would say, has a lot of the things that people want, in my opinion. Like people want to see grounded knees and soccer kicks, like the old Pride rules. They exist. You can watch it. But obviously it's not as accessible because Ryzen, it's not, to put it frankly, it's not easy to pirate Ryzen. It comes on at later times of the day for most Americans. So it's not the most accessible option. But whenever you have something that kind of just won, like the UFC already won, there's no incentive for them to really have to do that much. Like, people will sit here and try to tell me, "Oh, I'm not watching Ronda versus Gina Carano." You're gonna be watching the first prelim of this Apex card tomorrow. Don't tell me that you're too good to watch something. I'm not trying to hear that. Y'all will sit here and argue with me because I didn't know who like Joe Schmo, like Contender Series guy number 4 was, who has no picture on the UFC website. Like I didn't know who that was, but you're telling me, oh, well, yeah, but I'm not watching Gina versus Ronda. What, please? But I think there just has to be. This is kind of not even a UFC thing. This is just in general. Whenever there's an industry and there's one company that is at the top and there's no more pushback, the product generally does just start to just get kind of like stale to people. So that's why I am kind of intrigued with the MVP thing with Francis and Ronda and Gina. And I'd wanted to do well. And I don't get why there's a lot of UFC loyalists who are like kind of preying on his downfall. Cause I'm like, it would make the UFC better if they had to think, oh, like we have like an actual alternative that's gonna make fights like better. We gotta do something about that instead of just like, oh, well, this is in the UFC, so I don't care about this. This junk is stupid. But that's kind of I don't know if I really answered the question, but that's kind of my outlook on
Well,
it a bit.
I'll say to
yeah,
the
no, I think that's good.
people that are like the UFC loyalists or the UFC elitists, they wanna act like they're too good for, like, gimmick fights, and that goes to the influencer fights. I was
Mhm.
there at a point. With Jake Paul's career, I was like, "This is getting weird," like, the fact that he's boxing, once he got to, like, Anderson Silva, even Woodley, honestly, all of them. In retrospect, all of them. I don't know how any of them happened, but, yeah, it starts with Nate Robinson, an NBA player, and I'm like, "Okay, this is, I guess, shit stuff like this has happened before." Oscar De La Hoya and Shaq back in the day, Jose Canseco, Shaq back in the day. Stuff like this has happened before. I grew up watching stuff like this. Then he started getting to like MMA fighters, then MMA strikers, then Tommy Fury. Now he's talking about boxing Canelo. It got to a point where I was like, he's forcing me to take him more seriously, but I don't want to. Like, and I
Yeah.
never did. But now it's come full circle to the point where I complimented the Gina Carano versus Rousey event. I said how I genuinely think it's going to be the most watched MMA event of 2026. I genuinely think that because of Ronda Rousey for one, because of Jake Paul and it being associated with his promotion. Getting Francis on the co-main is really good. And then Netflix, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping it succeeds because um if they can do, even if it's like gimmick fights like that, right? Like Francis versus Philip Leans, I think is his name. That's not really a gimmick fight. Like that's a relatively active heavyweight. He was just a PFL guy by all like definitions. And then Philip Leans, I think he's on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak in the
Yeah, he
UFC,
left the
right?
UFC on a win streak. Like, he wasn't losing.
Yeah.
He actually wasn't a bad
Yeah.
fighter
So
in the
that's
UFC.
like a legit fight. And so if MVP can continue doing stuff like that, like Jay said, that's great for the UFC because
Mhm.
it's like Strikeforce back in the day. Strikeforce, no, Elite XC's biggest star was a gimmick guy. It was Kimbo Slice. It was
Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
backyard fighting Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
And that carried their promotion up until he lost. And then Strikeforce bought them and they had their guys that were, I think they were all pretty legit. They ended up getting Fedor, but I think there needs to be another place like Muhammad Makayev. He has nowhere to go that like he's taken seriously. And I think there needs to be
Yeah.
another place like that, like if I was really hoping the news of him fighting DJ was real and it was
Yeah.
going to be on MVP because that would be I think the biggest game changer cuz I would say I don't know who I would say is more in their prime between Francis and DJ, but I think people would take DJ more seriously in a return than they do Francis. And then Muhammad Makayev, he could come to the UFC and fight for a belt today, and people wouldn't really bat an eye. You know what I mean? So I think hopefully MVP continues to go in that direction. When it comes to influencer stuff, um, sometimes I'll tune in. Like there was that Dean the Great guy that got slapped by Larry
Yeah.
Wills and then elbowed by Tiki.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. I remember watching him do like I don't know if it was a tag team boxing match or a handicap boxing match, like a 2-on-1. I forget. It was on like a Jake Paul or a Logan Paul card though, and I had tuned in at that time, and he was doing one of those. And it's like it's silly, but it could be fun. It could be
Bro,
fun.
I'll just say it, bro, dude. I watched Patty Pimlet fight for interim belt. I watched Diego Lopez fight Volk again. I remember CM Punk fighting in the UFC 2 times. This, like, bro, Fedor was I wasn't around to see this, but Fedor literally fought what was his name? Bob Sapp. Bob
Hmm.
Sapp and them. Like, this whole idea that MMA is like, oh, we don't do that stuff over here in MMA.
The gimmick, you mean?
Yeah,
Like, the gimmick
that's the
stuff
thing.
isn't MMA literally started off as a gimmick. Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki, that's like the first
Yeah,
MMA fight. It
and
started
even
off
the
that
first
way.
UFC, you had Art Jimerson in one boxing glove.
Yeah, like, and you had a sumo wrestler and I know the guy that beat him
Karate.
ended up being, like, crazy or something, like actually
Yeah.
crazy, not, like, good crazy. But, yeah, like, dude, MMA had its roots in
Yeah.
this gimmick stuff anyway, and I just think I will say this is an overall thing I will say. A lot of MMA fans take themselves way too serious, I do feel like. Like, there is an aspect of the sport is meant to be kinda fun sometimes, and
Mhm.
when they kinda act elitist about certain things, but then at the same time, I'm like, "Bro, it's really not that different." Like, bro, I'll put it to you like this. MMA is like the one sport where let's just take Alex Pereira. How often do you see in boxing someone who did not box, they did something completely different. They come in relatively actually probably towards out of their prime. They come in and become a world champion. It's it maybe as like there's been guys who started late, but I can't recall someone at the highest level of boxing who did not do boxing. They were doing kickboxing or something else. At least for the men specifically. I don't know if Holly Holm did it the other way around, but that doesn't really exist. In MMA, you got a guy in Alex Pereira, you got Izzy, you got them who I don't even know if they came in their primes, but they are
And
world
one was an
champion.
alcoholic at one point as well. Like, he
Yeah.
was
Like,
yeah,
MMA is kind of the everyman sport, to be real.
yeah.
half of the roster still could be like your server at Texas Roadhouse, literally Jeff Neal. Like this stuff isn't that uncommon. So I think where there's this idea of, yeah, no, but influencer, boxing, or fighting is where I draw the line. But I'm like, some of these contender series guys might as well be influencers, bro. Like, like
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest, half of
for
them
sure.
could be no different, dude. Like, I'll be like, and then even like the influencer like style tactics, I think that's what the grappling matches are doing well. Like, for example, they just had that thing with Hype Brazil the other day, where it was Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva was the headliner, and then you had Barboza and Shara Bullet, and then even not with Hype Brazil, you had Arman and Muhammad Mokayev. Like, that stuff is wacky, but like, dude, that is kind of cool. Like, it is kind of cool. Now, I'm not asking for the UFC to go full on in that aspect, but to say though, again, this is my big gripe because people were arguing with me saying, "How could you say Ronda and Gina Carano is bigger than any UFC fight they're gonna do this year?" And I'm like, because bro, Gina Carano was in Star Wars. Ronda Rousey is literally women's MMA. I'm not saying it's a better fight. It probably won't be anything crazy to be real, but I promise you, pull up Netflix numbers in any UFC event that does not have Conor on it, it's not gonna be the same. I'm gonna get too long winded with it, but that's just my thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
think
I also think oh, go ahead.
if they made Gina versus Ronda in the UFC, there'd be a good percentage. I don't know if that's 10%, 50%, but there'd be a good percentage of people that would either be indifferent about the fight or be excited about the fight as opposed to being against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro, why are we acting like we didn't just say Nick Diaz fight Robbie Lawler? Like,
Yeah.
old. Like, this that's what I'm saying. Like, dude, this isn't this none of this stuff is even like out of the they were gonna try to do Hamza versus Nate Diaz.
I was
Why
trying to
do
think
that?
of like who the opponent would be, but Connor isn't that far removed from Ronda. You know what I
That's what I'm
mean?
saying. Y'all
Like
every
Connor age-wise, I don't think is that far removed. I think her last fight was 2015, but he didn't have that many fights after 2015. He had Eddie in 2016, Habib in 2018, and then like three more fights, and one of them was the leg break. You know what I mean? Like they're not that
dude,
far removed from each
Connor's
other.
37 years old, bro.
What's
Yeah.
Ronda, like 39 maybe?
Let's see. How old is Ronda Rousey? That's because I never really thought about because I feel like she's actually not as old as I think people would think, but it's just because she's been out the spotlight for so long. How old is she? She's 39.
39. Literally. Basically
Bro,
the same age.
we got people fighting for belts older than that, bro. Glover Teixeira was like 50 years old fighting for the belt, bro. Anytime,
Yeah.
dude. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'll be there. Okay, wait. Yeah, I think it's just also I think that everyone's been angry and I even was like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this Jake Paul thing? Like I was against the Jake Paul. I still am against the Jake Paul thing. That let's make that clear. But I think that it has started a new wave of people being interested in combat sports in some degree to some degree, right? And I think it's just like the new wave. I think that's what's coming up. Like I think that people are going to be tuning in to I think it's now more accessible with the UFC because like if you just happen to be on Paramount, oh, cool, I could click on this and you can make a new fan that way. It was a little harder when cards were specifically on ESPN, when you had to buy a pay-per-view to watch a fight. It's a lot more accessible and obviously influencers can push it out. So I'm like really warming up to the idea of it because I'm like, okay, like if this is what I'm going to be seeing more often, like maybe I got to dip my foot in this. Maybe this is something I got to like process and like come to terms with and maybe benefit from in a way, like to be able to be involved with because that's what I love. Like I love these kind of conversations. I love the sports. I love all of it. And at some point, maybe I will have to be attending a Jake Paul event. I don't know, you know? And I think that that's what's been like hard for me. And I'm sure, I mean, I can't put anything on you guys, but you guys have been watching a lot longer than I have. But I'm already kind of coming to the terms with the UFC being like not what it was or it's kind of collapsing in a way. And that already hurts my heart as even a new fan. So I'm like, ugh, you know?
I
I
want to
think
say this
what
real
I'll say,
quick about
yeah, go ahead.
influencers. At the end of the day, influencers are just people as well.
Yeah.
So to see them fighting, it's like it's like just looking at any other amateur fighter, you know? Like, I think, Jada, weren't you at an amateur show recently or
Yeah,
like a local pro show? It's
yeah,
just like going to one of those, you know what I mean? Except these guys have a million followers already, you
yeah,
know?
and it was so
And
cool, and I felt sparked by it, being at the amateur
exactly.
show.
So, like, Jake
Yeah,
Paul, I watching him from his Nate Robinson fight to I think Tyson may have been his most recent. Oh no, Anthony Joshua. To Anthony Joshua, like he actually has improved tremendously from
mhm,
that first fight to this most recent fight. So that's like if you don't get upset that it's Jake Paul, that's really cool to see. And that's the same
yeah,
thing with all these influencers.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of influencer fighting that I can get into.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to get used to it.
yeah, I'll just say, at least to close out my thoughts on, like, the UFC, like, I guess people see it as a decline. My biggest thing with the UFC personally is even if we go back to the 2010s, the idea of, like, undeserved title shots, they're not a new concept, but I do feel like there is a little bit of, like, I'd have to go back and actually verify this, but we're still kinda early on in 2026, but it does feel like there's an uptick in title fights that feel inconsequential. Like Volk versus Diego too. Even getting besides how Diego got the title shot, it's just when I went into the fight, it felt like I've seen this before. I think I know what's gonna happen, and then it did. The Max Charles fight, I don't necessarily feel that way about. I think that was more the marketing of the whole BMF thing. Just was like, I'll admit it gave me a different perception on what I was supposed to expect from the fight, even though it just was a normal MMA fight. Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje was a fun fight, but knowing that it was for a belt and knowing that Armand wasn't there made me not enjoy it that much because I'm watching it and going, "Oh, none of these guys gonna beat Ilya, so whatever. I don't really like care too much." And I think that's what the issue is that there is this thing of things that we know we could have, but are not getting. Whereas I think when like Conor or certain other fighters were getting opportunities that they may have not deserved back in the 2010s, the alternative usually wasn't actually all that much better from what people were asking for. I think one that goes under the radar is GSP and Bisping. Like, in the grand scheme of things, Bisping should not have been fighting GSP. It should have been either Yoel or Robert Whitaker, one of them. But it didn't happen that way. But to be fair, when people look back on it, people don't usually go, I wish Bisping was fighting Yoel or Robert. Some people do say that, but generally people just go, oh my gosh, GSP got a second belt. That was so cool. Right. And even they probably didn't even do it enough, not doing Silva and GSP. Now, I know there's like a whole lot of went into why that fight never happened, and there was a lack of, I guess, super fights or whatever. But now we're not even having the issue of we can't get like the super fights. We can't even get like the realistic next contender. Like, well, I'll bring it down like this. Imavov versus Hamza. People's rationale is, well, him and Sean might not win anyway, so let's just get the guy who's more exciting. But it's like, how do you actually know Imavov's not gonna win? That's like the point of
Yeah.
the title defense. You can't like pre-bake a win saying, oh, he's gonna win anyway, so like we'll just won't do that. And then with Ilya and Arman, now I get Arman did do it to himself in a lot of different ways. But I'm gonna be honest, he really didn't. Because Connor threw a dolly at the bush and they used that for promo. So let's not act like being a bad boy is not gonna get you a title shot. So
Sean
whenever you see
Strickland before the Hernandez win, coming off a 1-year suspension because he can't control his emotions, storming a cage in a, amateur event. He had his issue, his altercation with DDP in the crowd. Like he's done basically
yeah, dude, DDP could have
exactly what
got hurt
Armin's
from that.
done.
Like he could have
Exactly.
injured DDP from and then same goes with oh my goodness, Justin Gaethje and Ilya. Even though I get that Justin Gaethje, this is where I feel like I get frustrated because I know that technically speaking, he's the interim champion, so you got to unify it. But then I just say, did they actually have to do an interim belt for Patty versus Gaethje? Like you could have just had them fight, wait and see what happens with Ilya, and then just have them fight if you feel like that's the next contender. But when you put the interim belt out there, now it's like I know why they did it, so you can justify not Armand going in there. But that's the frustration. Like, I'm watching Ilya fight Gaethje when I know it could either be Islam or Arman. That's the issue. I'm usually people are cool with, like, the bad title shots when the alternative is something people don't need to see in the moment, like Kai Sakura versus, Pantoja. Now, most people's perspective on that is gonna be different because Kai wasn't an American, he's, like, from Ryzen, so he was, like, unknown, generally speaking, but I always say that wasn't that crazy of a title shot because who was Pantoja supposed to fight in that moment, really? Like, people always say that, but I'm like, "Alright, who would you have picked?" I would've said Kai Kara-France, but then he technically wasn't, he was in a weird spot at the point, but he ended up fighting Pantoja anyway later after the fact. But that's just, I think, the issue with a lot of the main events where a lot of them just don't feel that great because you can literally see the alternative right there. And then I'm even seeing like Mobster having to fight Lerone. Why can't they have both just fought Volk? If Volk would have beat them both, that's cooler to see than him beating the same guy. Like I can go through so many examples. That's just the issue. The
Yeah, I think
alternatives
that
are easy to make, but they're choosing not to do it. It's not that they can't do it. The UFC is not in any position where they can't make a fight. There's no fight that they physically cannot do. John Jones could be fighting right now if they just paid him what they wanted, and they can do it. They just gave Conor Ben 15 million. I'm gonna be real. Everyone right now, name me 5 Conor Ben fights. Gun to your head, name 5 Conor Ben fights. Not even boxing fans can do that. So it's not that they
can't
can't
even
do
think what he
it.
looks like.
Just choose not to.
I
I
don't
feel like
even
with a lot of it.
remember he fought someone's son, right? His
Chris
dad
Eubank
fought the
Jr.
guy's dad, yeah.
That's it. He's a nepo baby. That's his,
That's
that's
all
his
I
whole
know.
gimmick. He's famous for what they're famous for what their dads did. They're not even that famous for them.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good topic for next time, like, what the UFC is, like, withholding from us that we can just very clearly see, you know? Like, what like, the qualms we have that like, is an easy fix, you know? Because that's clearly, like, that's the perfect example, like, you all of these how are we playing better matchup than Hunter, you know? But it's not even that you really have to sit there and think deeply about it. It's literally just like the next logical option. And I know you both talk about how rankings at this point just don't matter. Like it just seems like obsolete at this point if they're just not even going to go based off their own rankings or like why did they make that up in the first place if they're just going to throw it out today? And it seems like he does that a lot. It seems like he just decides, "I liked it at one point, and years down the road, I said that. I had no idea. Whatever. I'm gonna do the exact opposite." So I feel like that's something good to talk about because I think that that's what everyone's feeling right now. Most content I see on TikTok, UFC related, is people talking about how the hell did this fight come about? Makes no sense. So yeah, that seems like a good next topic because I know you, Jay, were angry about Volk 2, Volk Diego 2.
I'm just gonna be real, bro, because LeBron did the spinning elbow first. Like people were like it's
Oh my
it's
god.
so like you know that whole quote about to be black, you gotta work twice as hard just to get the same result. Like Lerone
Yeah.
Murphy can go out there and spinning elbow Pico, but let Pico have knocked out Lerone Murphy, Pico would have been fighting for that belt.
He
But
would've.
Diego,
That's
but
the
Diego,
biggest thing, like, people wanna always talk about, "Oh, he beat an unranked guy coming from Bellator." You know damn well they were trying to give that unranked guy from Bellator a title shot. You know damn
I'm
well that's what they were
saying,
trying to do.
dude, and knowing how, and I'll say the perfect representation to close it out. Charles Johnson, he knocked out Lodi Kavanaugh and Joshua Van, and look at where they are. Lodi Kavanaugh top 5, Joshua Van champion. Charles Johnson, we'll see what happens depending on when this gets out. So the results will be known at this point, but that's just my point, man. Like I just say like this, the rankings are like when I don't know if y'all grew up, um, gaming with, like, your cousins or, like, siblings. It's like when you're young and they unplug your controller to make you think that
Mhm.
you're playing, and that's what the rankings are to me. Like, they go like, "Oh, we got this top 15," but I just go like, "Dude, my controller ain't even plugged in, bro. Just tell me who we fighting. Like, I don't care."